We are live.
Wait, we are
did you
live.
tweet out the things?
I just said
Let me go to your profile.
I just said going live. That's all I did.
So I'm kind of wired. I just drove in an hour ago.
Oh, well, that'll definitely do it. Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Because I was gonna go last week to see my GF, but then really stupid. I feel so bad. I kind of screwed my leg up a bit because I was doing my chest, and then I live now, get in here. I was doing my chest, and instead of taking the weights off when I was doing my back, I decided to do a clench and jerk, and I'm like, I should have done that because I've never done a clench and jerk with one plate. I've always done them maybe with less than one plate, but I'm like, I was just stupid. I don't know. I was even debating with myself. So then I felt this massive Charlie horse on my right leg. I'm like, oh God. Then it went away. And then that night, it was bad. It was I think I gave myself a shin splint, but then I recovered after a week. I'm pretty good now. So I went through for those who know, I went through a month of absolute hell with my ankle, but it's good now. I got my shoes adjusted and everything. So yeah, man, it's been pretty, it's been pretty busy, but I gotta, how have you been? You've been, I don't know, I'm concerned about you, big guy.
I've been incredibly busy with between work and then there was this tweet my friend shared with me. He's like, I opened my mouth and I became important at work, and now my life is hell. And that has basically been me for the last 3 weeks. I opened my fat mouth at a staff meeting about trying to do something remotely productive. And
why don't you do it, prude?
No, well, then what happened, literally, because our staff meetings happen on Fridays. And so, literally, Monday I come into the office, and then he's just like, all right, it's, we'd like to offer you to this position. And then I was like, I'm not sure if I want that, because that kind of would interrupt with my life here going on right now. And it was just like, well, no good deed goes unpunished at the work office. And Homer Simpson is right. The lesson is to never try. Which is funny, because it's I work for,
Or do it, this is America, do it really half-assedly. That's what Homer said, too. Yeah. I think that's how he finished that particular quote.
There's a lot of wisdom in Homer Simpson, and I'm sure one day you, Gio, will do, the definitive review. Oh, it's just funny, because I actually am pretty invisible at work, but I get a lot done. It's one of those jobs where you get most of your work done on, Monday in the first 5 hours, and then you're done for, the week. And
well, that's good.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's great. I love it. Anyways, I didn't get the position because they made me interview for it with a few other people, and I'm totally okay with not getting it. But outside of that, it was also just fun to witness how people because I work with everyone in my office is over 45, so I'm the only person in the entire office under 30. And so, watching their eyes widen at the most basic suggestions is always entertaining. But again, it's that intergenerational stuff at the workforce that makes my wage cage slightly entertaining.
So you don't have the old boomer women are doing that one TikTok thing? You're doing work and that one video is the guy's doing work at the corner and he just hears, Gen Z bus in a mini. It's boomer bus in a mini. You don't have any
boomer bus in a mini, and it's just the road to it's the Medicare van.
Why won't you die, Medicaid? Oh, that's bad. Apparently, Ethan Ralphie flew all the way to California. He didn't see his son. It was the Mexican airline screwed him over or something. Anyways, that's not.
Wow, we're 4 minutes in, and there's e-drama. Look at that. That's a new record.
Because I just remember when he was hollering, "Why can't you die, Medicaid, Mr. Medicaid?"
Oh.
Anyways, oh boy, this is the Digital Archipelago episode what?
Don't you have Kino Casino to do in 30 minutes? You finally book it with them? Did it finally happen?
No. Apparently, they're getting Dark Side Phil on tonight.
Oh, well, that'll
to talk about the June the King dog.
Entertainment in itself.
Yeah, I shouldn't mention that. Then all you people are going to go to Kick instead of watching us talk about European politics. What episode?
98.
98. Yeah.
We get closer and closer to episode 100. It's a crazy time to be alive.
Christ on crutches. That's a good one. I thought the Trump assassination attempt got rid of Gen Z girl boss videos.
I saw one literally a week after it, and it was about like a one of those like grieving anonymous groups, and they were like trying to do TikTok trends at like a family loss anonymous video, and it was like dead dad in a mini bag, and I was like, this is just awful.
That's terrible.
I thought I had seen the worst, and then I'm continuing. I think if there's an eternal rule of the internet, is that you can never set your standards low enough to never be disappointed.
There was that one girl that did a TikTok dance while her grandmother was dying. Remember that one?
Was that during the coup?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot about that can't be memory hold, and that's a whole other discussion.
Oh, don't worry, NG Benji. We're gonna get to
We're gonna get into all of that.
This is gonna be the Kira Starmer hate hour. Don't worry about the hour of 2 minutes of hate. Yeah.
And I mean, well, we have to be careful, Gio. They might want to extradite us.
Oh yeah.
We have to be careful about that.
What was 1984 was basically modern Britain, right? Or it was like, well, wasn't that a British society?
Yes,
Orwell envisioned?
Ingsoc was known as English socialism.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, a lot of people they debate. Like, I remember I had this TA when I was an undergrad. He was like, "Well, he was talking about capitalism, right?" I mean, maybe, but 2-tier queer. That's pretty good. Yeah, Britain. They never used to have that. They actually did have well, I shouldn't say that. The police force was kind of corrupt because they had to be. But up until recently, they did have, it was sort of like certain parts of Canada, you'll still have a decent police force that doesn't have the sort of, and I hate to say this, I know, listen, most of our audience is American, but you do notice this sort of like creeping transnational progressivism that largely stems from America when it comes to the same ideological concepts that are bleeding into greater Europe. I mean, Canada, obviously we were the first, victim of this, but no, Orwell is talking about communism. But see, that's the debate though. Like a lot of like leftoids, they're like, Orwell's talking about capital and blah, blah, blah. But
Orwell makes a specific reference to James Burnham in 1984. I'm pretty damn sure that this is an inter-leftist dialogue that we're also taking a look at here.
Well, my TA was, I think he became an impossible, so that's probably what explained it.
Anyways. I mean, keeping the other thing I think to keep in mind as we sort of talk about, I wouldn't go that far, punished early, for the sole basis is that, like, well, if we're a descendant of a particular people that came here, there are some roots of progressivism that finds its origin point England.
Oh, I think like England did definitely, in terms of the ideological development of what we would consider nowadays, like I always, I prefer the term transnational progressivism. England, certainly with certain Fabian socialists, you could say probably did have influence, but then unfortunately, like that does stray into a.
And then also of course, the post-war intellectual immigrants that came here. So I mean, like it's both yes and no.
Yeah, because I think the focusing on Fabian socialism, like a lot of boomers got taken in by like listening to like Alex Jones documentaries, like Endgame, and definitely there was a thing, but you have to realize that the Fabian socialists by today's standards, I mean, they were into that E word that I don't think, it's only 8 minutes in. They were into that E word, eugenics, they were into, the foundation of philosophy, the birth and something in the foundation of philosophy. So they wouldn't be considered modern progressives. I mean, they were progressives of their day, but I think it's more complicated than just, see, this is the problem when it comes to the ideological development of the Western world currently, is that, I think even Nightmare Vision said, or no, I think it was, I forget who said this, that the problem with the right wing is that there's sort of, the E-right in particular, there's sort of like an obsession with a maximalist genealogy. Sorry, Carlsbad said this. What am I talking about? That there's an obsession with maximalist genealogies where there is like, okay, this event in history, this school of thought, irregardless of context, that this was the beginning of all the ills of modern society. So I think that the problem is that when you go back farther enough, then you're going to sort of get tripped up in the actual history. And this is the basic, if you know I don't know a lot, but like I'm actually in the works to interview someone who is very well read in conceptual history. Not Nigel Carlsbad, but I promised. Apparently, he's back. I promised Condylis Graper a podcast.
Oh yeah, I noticed he was back.
Yeah, and so I think that actually that reminds me, I have to refollow him. But so I think the problem is that when you get into all these genealogies, that it really trips up because you don't have the same grounding or context. And so, for example, if you were to say, okay, the Fabian Society and the Fabian Socialists, they were the ones that caused the GAE or global race communism or whatever. Or you're saying, okay, the Frankfurt School. Or it was, and some people say it's the American foundings. I was actually watching this one particular podcaster used to be part of one particular network say about like Thomas Jefferson was like the leader of like, godless America, blah, blah, blah. Which, I mean, there's certainly truth to it. I mean, definitely Jefferson was antithetical to old war religion, but I wouldn't say that you could point a pin on one particular circumstance. It was the Glorious Revolution. It was the French. Oh, okay, maybe the French Revolution, but like it was the French Revolution even. And to say, okay, this axial point in history caused migrants to grape and abuse people in the West and caused your kids transing or whatever. It's like, you know what I mean? It's you have to like really look at the conceptual history of it and the context of the thinkers that they were applying to. And so, for example, I always get tripped up because they accuse me of this stuff because I'm like, well, I did my research project when I was in university on Michel Foucault. And it's like, you can't, Foucault was, not to deny that he was, other words I can't say on YouTube.
And a communist.
Yeah. But like to say that, because the mutilations of Foucault at the hands of Judith Butler, but I don't know, because sometimes there's certain transgressive things where, for example, did you know, and listen, not to say I'm defending Israel or whatever, because I would never do that, but do you remember what Judith Butler said after October 8th? Sorry, after November, was it November 8th or October 8th? October 7th. When was the...
October 7th.
October 7th. Do you remember what she said, her infamous quote?
No, I don't.
She said that grape was an act of resistance. It was a legitimate political act of resistance, right? And I'm thinking like, oh, that's monstrous. No modern queer theorist or whatever would say that. But I'm thinking like, out of all the readings of Michel Foucault, me, you know what I mean? Like, I think like the transgressive aspect of that is kind of in keeping with Michel Foucault. And so you have to always be cautious of that, because he was certainly engaged in a number of sadomasochistic practices that he wrote about that you would consider grape essay for a YouTube OPSEC. So the point being is that you have to always be cautious. There's always, again, the one great Foucault quote would be that nothing is more, it's not that things are immoral, it's just that everything presents itself a danger. Everything's dangerous. So in a way, like Judith Butler saying that is kind of in keeping with her intellectual genealogy, even though you would look at it and it's monstrous, right? I mean, unless you're particular type of poster on Twitter that has, particular affectations aesthetically. But anyways, let's not get into that. Let's not get into that.
I never know who you're referencing when you do stuff like that, so it's perfect for me to think
there's
complete ignorance.
Do you remember the Trauma comics with the grape monster?
Yes.
And then people started doing the Chud Jacks with the grape monster with the shirt. And like, and there's all these like handles, like the gentle RPist,
Psycho RP. Yeah. The kind of stuff I don't condone.
Some of those handles are wild, though. I gotta say, like, it really is. Like, I don't know. Like, half of the time, it is kind of Not that I condone it, but like, it is kind of like transgressive performance art in some weird ways. Because I can't imagine that someone would. I don't know. Like, I think that there's always been, like, from the inception of the internet, there's always been, okay, what's the most shocking thing you could think of, and how can you meme it and shock people with it? You know what I mean? Like that was always like you could go to the Usenet days, and I'm sure there was like someone who had some handle, psycho grapist or whatever. Like I'm sure you could find something.
Well, hasn't this been the big point about all sort of comedy? At least as far as I can remember, it has always been about how can I push things towards the edge. I mean, this is the sort of Lenny Bruce kind of. It's not even Lenny Bruce. He's just the more 20th century archetype that I can think of that was really going to push things. Him and like Tom Lerner, and then later, of course, like George Carlin. Yeah. And I mean, the internet, of course, allows you to do that. And that's the big thing about sort of being online is that you kind of have to determine what kind of role do you want to be. Do you want to be the spectacle, or do you want to be just a platform? I mean, if you're the spectacle, right, you're the person that creates things, you're the person that says things of these words, yada, 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 then like, great, you have an opportunity to stick around and have some longevity. If you become just something that's a platform for others to exist, like for instance, I mean, I don't think he's, well, what's the word I'm looking for? He's probably not a good person now, or perhaps ever has been. But you know, like Moot, right? What is Moot?
Right, yeah.
He's a meme, but he's also like, he was a platform because he's the creator of 4chan. I think he got arrested at some point. I'm not wanting to get into that, but however, things to consider with that respect is that like he wasn't really anything outside of a meme because you were there for the platform. Right. Whereas nowadays, if you try to do things online, it's like, well, you can either be part of a platform, i.e., an interview show or host something, or you can be the personality and the spectacle itself, and then go your own route and trying to be a performance artist in that respect.
Yeah, but I think like the problem is that a lot of those guys, they fell into a form of bad faith. Like if you're gonna be like, I am a Chud Jack Gooner, those, you know, saying those like those four numbers in combination, you know, like with the spinny wheels and all that, and like having like the great monster, like if you're gonna like do it, then like at least be consistent. Like there was guys like I remember listening recently while I was driving. I was listening to this podcast, and they mentioned what's his name, the workout guy that hated fat people. He died recently.
Oh, I have no idea.
Richard Simmons.
No, yeah, that's the Richard Simmons, like the
the workout guy, the 80s workout.
Oh, he did die in July at 76.
Yeah, Richard Simmons. Yeah.
The flamboyant, very queer acting individual. Yeah.
Yeah, and in this interview they mentioned that, for example, back in the day, there was these infamous interviews that he did with Howard Stern, and you gotta realize, like back in the early 90s, Howard Stern, he would like, you know, he would say, he would, you know, drop F slurs, and he would always allude to Richard Simmons.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, go ahead.
No, but my point being is that now Howard Stern's like a total cretin, because now he's like a libtard, and it just he like talked to like during like Clownvid broke his brain, Trump broke his brain, and now he's like he wants to censor everybody, you know. He's like, but Howard Stern was on the radio. He was I believe he was one of the first people to drop F slurs and N words on the radio, and but now he's like you know, all these Trump supporters should be jailed, blah blah blah, and like they're racists, and it's like, well, you were fucking Howard Stern, like, you know, it's just, and same with like Carlin. I think Lenny Bruce was still consistent till he died. Yeah, he kind of always was a cretin. Yeah,
because, I mean that's the thing. It's just that what was considered funny or transgressive or things that you could laugh at now. I mean, that's just how bad the standards have fallen years ago. I mean, this is why everyone hates. Like, oh, if you grew up and you thought he was like edgy and offensive, and then you start listening to his stuff, then you're like, well, actually, no. Like, he's always been just a virulent. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like, listen to his old stuff, and then you're like, oh, this guy's just a cretin that wants to like hate the world, and that's just a big part of who he is these days. And I mean, the same thing with all these guys is that you have to get in line in order to make your money. Like, you're part of the spectacle. That means you have to change to stay relevant. And so everything about being safe, edgy, even like 30 years ago, is verboten. Then yeah, you're going to get on board, you're going to keep your contract, and you're going to shut things down.
It's funny how like the Westboro Baptist Church is actually edgy compared to like George Carlin nowadays. Because I remember when he died, you have to like go to BitChute to find it, but the Westboro Baptist Church, they released this video with Fred Phelps. So it was called Carlin in Hell. It was was like so funny, man. That was hilarious. This is like back in the day. Like I was watching. I think someone posted on X this old Jib Jab animation, and it was like peak mid 2000s. Like George Bush was still in office, and the things that they were talking about. It was called "This is the News." This is what we call the news. If you look it up on YouTube, and I think it's like 17 years old or something like that. And it's really in stark contrast to right before the internet like really took over in terms of mass culture, because they're talking about celebrities, they're talking about Cheney like shooting that guy in the face when they were duck hunting. And the news cycle was like not like nowadays. It was very slow. Like I remember when I was a kid, like people would just incessantly quote Napoleon Dynamite. And it happened for like 5 years.
Or Talladega Nights.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Or an Anchorman.
I saw this tweet. It was one of those viral ones from like Normie World that makes the rounds. And someone had said, before like meme culture on the internet, it was just a bunch of dudes quoting Anchorman and Talladega Nights to one another.
Yes.
And it's like, yes, absolutely. And I, to be honest, though, I have a lot of like nostalgia for Jib Jab because I remember the like it's time for campaigning for like the 2008 election.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Or This Land Is My Land. Yeah, although I'm terrified because I was told they're still around, and I am terrified to like click on it because I can only imagine how bad it is.
They don't get any views either. It's terrible.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the case. It doesn't surprise me.
And the thing is, though, that you wouldn't have that nowadays. Like you'd have a movie that people would quote maybe for like a week or two, but like there just wasn't a developed or refined meme culture. It was really the information vector to like core millennials was still very much like centralized to the mainstream media. So you would have the 24-hour news cycle, but nowadays the 24-hour news cycle truly is that, because you could go on Twitter. Like I found out Trump was the attempted assassination because I was in a group chat with you, Prude, and someone said, "Oh my God, they almost shot Trump." And I like literally just scroll up on Twitter and you'd see the video. Whereas like back in the day, like I remember I was one of the few people in my school that saw 9/11 because I was taking the attendance down that day. And it was the only room was in the library, the only TV that had cable. And that's how I saw the second tower go in. The second plane go in. And so it's like nowadays, like it's they're fried in a way. Like you really can't keep up,
Well, I think that's the interesting thing about all this is that like you have it's blink or you miss it. I mean, for like we talked about this. We've talked about this a lot on the show throughout the nearly 100 episodes now. But it's just like when we ask people, can you name a historical photo in the last 10 years? So from now to 2014, that has the same like mental staying power. Do you think will have the same historical staying power as like the famous photo of the Hindenburg explosion or September 11th? And most of the time, it's no, because there's more photos than ever. And it kind of devalues the worth of a historical photo, or even that famous Vietnam one. And then at the same time, you have
which famous Vietnam one? The children or the soldier staring into the camera?
The execution one.
Oh, that one, yeah. No, but people like they're like leftoids. It's still like
that's Geo. That's besides the point. Is like okay, there's these historical value messages, but now that they're out, and the same way that like because of and again, this is also in big part because our brains are so warped from being on Twitter all the time.
Yeah,
is that the Trump mugshot didn't last particularly long. Even now, what you're seeing is between a lot of like conservative media influencers, they're the ones that are like, well, don't you forget that they just tried to kill the president. Like that's a big thing.
Yeah, people are already like the fist raise. It's already like disappearing.
Yeah, and I mean the same thing where people will change the profile picture and so on and so forth. One of the things that I've noticed is having some staying power is that if you can monetize the image.
Yes.
So that's one of the interesting things is that, and this is
Charlie
not
bit my finger NFT.
Well, it's not okay. So this isn't to shit on anybody. I'm being very explicit about that. But like, for instance, the dark MAGA coin and like the laser eye PFP and the bringing of that back. Like, if you can monetize it, then like there's a reason to keep it going. And I mean, you saw a huge jump in its value, obviously, when Elon Musk did it for like a couple of days. And on top of that, memes and everything like that now can have substantially increased longevity if they're monetized. if they're tied to a coin, if they're tied to an NFT, and if they're tied to a particular like Solana crypto exchange or whatever. And so the purple jack fat woman GF thing, I mean, literally has a coin. You can look it up on Twitter. It's like at fat GFs or
There's
whatever.
one guy that makes it.
And it's like one guy that constantly makes them. I think the first one was just an absolute piece of psycho security breach, like Cognito Hazard, don't look at it. Although I have a rant on this meme, and I'm going to upload it later this week for the patrons. But on top of that, it's tied to a way in which you can make money. And so now, because every platform has found like the magic code to keep things going algorithmically, tying you towards the ways to stay at these things, then all of a sudden they have longevity because you can
well, you have to relevant. Pump it. Yeah, you have to pump before the dump.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, and so it becomes a sort of like weird masturbatory exercise, but it's using memes and it's using the kind of like situations where you can kind of like literally pull out a sort of like scalpel and like cut into someone's brain that way. Whereas in the olden days, whereas prior to that, it's always been like a way in which it had longevity because it was organic, it was funny, it was clever, but it was also a much limited network.
And then it burns out. Like, do you remember? Connected. Yeah. Do you remember that one, the net neutrality debate? That one Indian guy with the like ridiculous size Reese's Pieces like mug that he would drink out of?
Yes, that was Ajit Pai or whatever his name was, one of the FCC chairmen, right?
Yeah, and like all the frogs, like Second City Bureaucrat and like Night Revision, they were like memeing it by like making the mug bigger, but that lasted like a month, like not even a month. That lasted like a week, and it was like just to piss off libtards that had abandoned the idea of net neutrality. Yeah, remember net neutrality, exactly, ancient Giga Chat, exactly. No, but like it's very strange how the only way an image has lasting power is either through monetization, like you said, Prude, or if it's like literally a government psyop. Like the only people that have a succinct profile are people that are a part of some kind of glow in the dark operation or some kind of like Act Blue, like AstroTurf, like Nafo, like the doggo, the Nafo dog. That's only because it's being pumped by like all of that money filtering through the State Department. That's the only reason people still have that profile. Or now with the fucking stupid coconuts and palm trees for Kamala Harris. Like, I've never seen a more bot-liked AstroTurf nonsense, really. And it's like, I don't know. It's just, it's very funny. But you said like in the last, since 2014, like, that was in 2014. Do you remember, was it Time Magazine that did the first Obama cover edition Man of the Year? We had the halo. Do you remember that one?
I do remember it. I just can't tell you what year it was.
I think that may have been 2009 or 2010. Because that, I think, or it could have been 2008. Obama, photo, halo, Time. I mean,
it's not like there hasn't been plenty
of Newsweek. It was when it was gay marriage.
It was gay marriage.
It was he evolved the first gay president, Newsweek, and the halo was rainbowed. This is 2013. Okay? And it's just like, oh my god.
The gay marriage case doesn't get legalized till 2015.
It's very funny though, they called him the first gay president.
Well, you know, that kind of stuck longer than being like the first black president, if you think about it. That did, yeah.
Remember Halo?
Yeah. Geez, content mining corner. That's funny. Yeah, it's true, Hafio. So true.
He kind of was the first gay president, if you believe all the rumors. Never mind. Let's not.
Well, it's not even just rumors, but I mean, like, consider our progressive mega culture that now takes over. It's all that sort of stuff.
First download president.
First undercover brother,
First Sunni Muslim gay Sunni Muslim communist from Indonesia, Barack Obama. All those conservative memes are correct. All those Bush era, those Obama era conservative memes are correct.
Yeah, I again, it's just I think the eternal thesis that a lot of sociologists or even neurologists are going to conclude of this like decade has been the perception of time has been so radically altered because of the ecosystems that we inhabit digitally that we will I genuinely think that new disorders or brain conditions are going to come out of this century.
Oh yeah,
in the Western world, especially. I really do think that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, like technoid info mind type of condition.
Yeah.
As a form of schizophrenia. But I think like the problem is that you can't really, demonize it to such an extent, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of people that write about the internet and write about technology. And me and Kat talked about this, that you really can't just be like, okay, it's bad, but okay, yeah, it's bad. But I think that the real take is that this is the reality we live in, and it's more of finding ways of dealing with it rather than finding some kind of like piecemeal demonization or piecemeal like optimism that doesn't exist anymore. There has to be another way of approaching it. And maybe like the internet kind of is like a grand filter thing, because there will be
I certainly believe it's a filtering event. It's not to say that like, oh, all technology bad, or boomers yelling at their computer like, oh, wife bad, tech bad, like kids always on the phone these days. No, it's more of the lines of the like, either you're going to learn to adapt, or there will be some kind of
or you'll be tossed.
Well, I said this on Jason's channel, the 2-Bit podcast. I was on his show last Friday, and I had said, I think that there's going to be some kind of neurological speciation. Like, there's going to be people who try to moderate their technology use, and in a way I do. I try and take breaks. I fast from it during the weekends and such. And it's just like, or you're going to have people that totally inherit and inhabit the space 24/7, serial experiments lane style. Like, this is their world, this is their life, this is the only thing that matters to them, because this is really where reality is. This is where you can achieve some kind of man-made apotheosis. And so in doing so, like, there's going to be two radically different people. Like the iPad baby versus the kid that got like tiger mommed into like learning classical piano at age 5. Two totally different people. Like neurologically speaking, that's a whole different species. And so on top of that, I think that that's going to emerge, and it's going to make any facet of political engagement, economics, spirituality, etc., all going to be there. Because one of the most damaging thing out of the net that I think you can say for sure, and I think that you and Kat would agree with me, has been the commodification of all things.
Right.
Which includes identity at its root. Because for a lot of people, unless you are like a serious churchgoer, like the cross in your bio or the papal flag in your Twitter handle is nothing more than a jersey for you to wear to identify a teammate. That's it.
Yeah, but that's where you have to dance for pennies in the gutter.
Yeah.
By doing by being a lol cow or whatever. And but I think what's crazy though is that like the iPad baby who discovered 4chan when he was 12 years old is probably, I hate to say it, but probably shockingly more equipped for the world we're heading towards.
Oh, absolutely.
And the tiger mommed classical pianist. Like that guy's gonna get wiped out. Yeah.
There's probably great truth to that.
That was like that one cartoon I saw recently where it was like these like two kids in the early 2000s or in the mid 2000s, and one kid had the sort of the Tron flag shirt.
Yeah.
And then it's like, here's your future, and it's like through a portal, and the future he's like a jacked Giga Chad. Sorry, like a Chud Jack, but like jacked with the Austrian painter symbol. So he's like, don't worry,
you'll the future.
You'll understand one day.
You'll understand.
Like, yeah. No, but that's what I mean. Like, it's like that. There are shockingly a number of people that aren't willing, nor should they. I mean, that's the problem, is that you will have this grand filter sorting mechanism where you will have a lot of people that will end up just as sort of like trashed by the machinations of history. That's why I think this whole economic thing is probably bullshit, because nothing ever happens. And is it true the stonks are gone, Prude? Like, what happened with that? I haven't been keeping up. But some people are losing their crypto.
Well, there was a huge dip in Bitcoin, and also just the general stock market worldwide. There was massive losses. I don't know how much of it has recovered, if at all. And I mean, it was a quick, market flash where a lot of banks were and trading markets were like, all right, we're going to stop panic selling, to like sort of repeat a lot of the similar steps we've done when there have been other panics in the market. So I would need to look more into it before I can give you a definitive answer. But I mean, again, it just tells you, like, if you blink and you miss it, you're not going to get the chance to do it. But the funds are not safe. Okay, well, that's good to know.
Yeah, but the economy is so virtualized. Like
6%, that's nothing. Well, I think that the reason why people are 6% is nothing. I'm inclined to disagree, just because of how much quantitative easing has radically altered our economy. 6% is nothing, but in the long run of how rates are, plus how people are lending, I would argue that it is much more of an impact than it has been in previous, economic cycles. And if they're just hedging their debts, then that even tells us that there might be a debt crisis coming along, because God knows we've been borrowing money for nothing. Powell isn't going to raise rates right now. If anything, he might change it by a percentage point or two, because he doesn't want the economy to crash in the midst of an election year.
Yeah, but debt doesn't really matter anymore. I mean, it's sort of like the Bojardian, the economy never happened. Like, they're gonna find a way to keep it going till, well, I don't know. I truly believe that they've sort of finessed a way to negate this sort of like old school libertarian boom and bust cycle, like that. Not to say it's totally irrelevant. I don't know that much about economics, but I think that given that after 2008, there's sort of been a massive virtualization of the economy in general. So it's like, I press nothing happening. I press the nothing happening button. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, does the economy, like the extent the economy matters is the extent to which the central planners and the managerial class let it happen. The economy will matter to like low level people. It'll matter to people like you and me, but it's sort of like
it's going to matter to it's going to matter to anyone who doesn't make more money than
thank God,
yeah, which is a phrase I don't like, but still, I mean, it is true. Like, if you don't make a lot of money, then it's basically over for you, and this is the consequences of how it works. Because I mean, like, a lot of my job is like dealing with the consequences that people get screwed over by the economy particularly easy, and in doing so, like, their towns get wrecked. And when that happens, it's like, okay, cool. Now that it's wrecked, how on earth am I going to try and find ways and means to rebuild it? And of course, like, the American government nowadays has a lot of tools to do these things. Not saying that I'm pro more taxpayer dollars being thrown back at cities when they could have kept that money, but if there are tools available, you should use them. And so if you're an average Joe, yeah, like, the economy sucks and it's fake and people are asking where are all the jobs. It's a valid question to ask, because I mean, we look at every indicator it has. Well, if, like, you've been here your whole life, you're not the one getting a job. It literally is the immigrant, or it is someone else. How many charts and stats have we shown about, like, foreign born workers, like, getting a leg up, whereas, like, natural born citizens have been screwed over time and time again, especially under this administration.
Well, you have to tell me I'm in Canada.
I was going to say the same damn thing in Canada too. We're like, oh my gosh, you look at a fucking McDonald's saying now hiring sign, and it's just an army of Indians.
Yeah. Every Tim Hortons is just basically Bangladeshis or Indians.
Yeah.
Sikhs. They're all Sikhs. Yeah. It's over. Surprising lack of Timmy's in Toronto, though. Did you know that they have coffee time there? I guess they just, I don't know. But everywhere else, where Tim Hortons is, it's all the only time I'll see a white person working at Timmy's will be like maybe a few managers, or when I go to the States and I go to a Timmy's in the States, they'll still have like white people doing like the menial stuff. It's like it kind of is almost like culture shocky. But no, that's what I mean.
Isn't it depressing where it's like culture shock is seeing white people?
Yeah, I know, right?
That's depressing.
I know, right? Like, it's just, yeah, exactly. Like, it's I shouldn't say that. There still is like some menial jobs that, like, lower level white people have, but it is in Canada, like, it's over. Like, it's because what happens is you'll have a Sikh manager, or you'll have someone in a community and they have relatives coming over, blah blah blah, or they'll only hire themselves. It's like, that's like, it's not even racist to point that out. You know what I mean? Like, us Italians did it. Not really. I shouldn't say that. Us Italians, we did. Why am I kidding?
You had a whole ethnic mafia system. I think it's okay to say that you did it.
Oh yeah, true. In construction, various other artisanal. Yeah, it's true. But then after a while, like, Italians were forced to integrate. So then it became like, usually like middle managers will be still like Anglo stock Canadians. Italians will all be laborers, but then Italians got to generally put it this way. By the time Italians in Canada and America became middle management, they long since stopped becoming an ethnic mafia, and they started to think of themselves as just like more ethnically flavored white people. And so therefore they really bought into like the American European shredder of like meritocracy and like everyone's fair, blah blah blah. So at one time, Italians, Croatians, Ukrainians, especially here in Canada, they all had their little ethnic mafias in different industries. A lot of Slavic people were bricklayers. A lot of Italians worked in concrete and bricklaying. But after a while, we all just became white people. So it was like, you know what I mean? Like the new world immigrants that come over nowadays, they don't have that same thing. You know what I mean? It's a different, I mean, it's hard to say, because I think this will lead into the main topic of tonight, is that could you say the same about these various, the term ghetto is kind of whatever, but like ethnic enclaves you have in Europe and to some extent North America. Could you say the same about them? Because they're not coming from like a uniquely European understanding of things. You know what I mean? So
no, but I mean, what the argument I guess you could make would just be that, like, at a certain point, there was a clannish ethnocentrism amongst Europeans that just doesn't really exist anymore.
100%.
That's been beaten out of them. Whereas for the rest of the world, not so much. And so, yes, East Asians, Middle Easterners, Africans will all act the same way because they look out for themselves. Like, that's just an inherent truth to that matter. I think that. I guess before we dive into that real quick, I mean, you'd mentioned the phrase "nothing ever happens," and I kind of wanted to get into that because I both simultaneously get it, where you shouldn't stake your reputation on every little headline that happens, because like I say on the for the title of the stream, you just have to get lucky once, and by that I just mean, you know, like something has to happen just once, right, for you to make your bet, you know, about something happening, or for you to lose saying nothing ever happens, and I get that. But on one hand, I do think in some way, and perhaps this is me reading way too much into it because I like reading about tech and how it affects us and the whole extensions of man thing. But on one hand, I do think it's kind of an auto amputation. I think that when you say nothing ever happens, you can kind of discursively, but also in your mind, wipe out the real need to pay attention to it, because you kind of already have a good schema for how things operate. And so you can kind of just cut that off from affecting you. And on one hand, I think it's actually a pretty useful tool to say nothing ever happens. But on the other hand, and this is where I'm particularly cautious / skeptical, cynical, whatever you want to call it, I think that there is a reason to be actually, no, it's incredibly dangerous, because, you know, when you say, oh, nothing ever happens, and that's your way of like cutting things out, I think that you also limit your mental model for how the world operates, or that you're missing out on things that can happen. So, I mean, if you're not paying attention to a particular sector of the news or the economy or whatever, and then something happens that like what you think is out of nowhere, well, it's because maybe 6-7 months ago you said nothing ever happens and you left it at that. Or
something happens, you say take your meds, kids.
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, I find the phraseology and sort of the meme power behind it so particularly interesting, is because, you know, that's the Chud Jack doubling down at the poker table, or, you know, he's standing there in the nuclear missile silo and he's just like, nothing ever happens. And it's like, sure, you can say that. Obviously the thing with Iran, right? Like, clearly I think that all the OSINT guys have said nothing's going to happen with that.
Oh, come on. they're not going to do anything. Well, I hate to say it.
But the last time too that they did anything, it was like slow-moving drones that were easily intercepted by both the Israelis and the Americans, and
they have to do the whole chest thumping thing.
Well, you know, which is sort of what is the important thing to consider. Like, I don't see them, you know, going out of their way to like do total, you know, peer-to-peer conflict in the Middle East right now. There's just too many things, I think, going on for them to logistically handle that. Both Iran and the Western powers. I
mean, Israel definitely wants it, but would America be dragged into an engagement with Iran? Okay, first of all, let's look logistically. To invade Iran, you would need like literal Operation Barbarossa level men and
planning
equipment
and logistics.
and planning logistics. You need at least 1 million men. Now, America, I think they generally would have a massive problem fielding 1 million. Not to say that all Americans are not ill-equipped, but I mean in terms of will, in terms of Western coalition power, certainly, because America would be alone in Israel. No other, it wouldn't be like the Goat. Like no other Western country would do that, right? Or maybe Britain, maybe, but you never know, right? Could America field 1 million fighting age men? And could you field 1 million fighting age men that have the will to actually fight a war that would largely just benefit Israel, right? Now, all those old guys, those old heads that were in the global war on terror, a lot of them either came home fucked up, they're gone, or they're old and they really, in terms of like a new war, they can't do it, right? So the American military of 2004 is much different in some ways than the American military. I mean, you would know more than me, Prude, but like it's different than the American military of 2024. No, would there be conscription? Would you imagine like multicultural Zoomers being conscripted? No way.
You can't.
You want to talk about like the Floyd riots? I mean,
well, so if you want to know an interesting little, I mean, Americans know this or they should know this, but like just look at the New York City draft riots in the 1860s during the Civil War, like the absolute destruction. And also the political ramifications of it, because actually what happened during that riot would inevitably lead to kind of a white flight of sorts from some of the migrant populations that were in there that were, part of the draft riots. And so it's a big reason why a lot of upstate New York is particularly Republican still to this day, is because a lot of families and a lot of wealth moved to other parts of the state and got out of the city.
They moved to upstate New York.
You would see the same thing happen. Also, because let's not kid ourselves. Despite the fact that the military is increasingly diversified in America, most of the people who are combat casualties are white guys.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, you wouldn't have low-level engagements like you would have now. There were certain points in Iraq and Afghanistan, especially in Iraq. I mean, in Afghanistan as well. Like you had, what was the big one in Afghanistan besides Tora Bora? There was a number of them. There was Battle of Kandahar. There was the British had Basra. What was the really big one when they were on horsebacks, the special forces?
I don't know off the top of my head.
They had a really Mosul. Yeah, that was a big one. Of course, Iraq, infamous around Fallujah, around the troop surge. These were meat grinders, right? But Iran, if you were to invade Iran, you would have to go through Qom. You would have to go through a lot of different cities. It would be a meat grinder everywhere you go. It would, and okay, yes, there's a lot of libtards in Iran. There's a lot of like NGO, Western educated retards that hate the Iranian government, the revolutionary government, right? But if they were being invaded by Israel and by America, a lot of those people would sign up to go for those 1980s style human wave attacks. I'm sorry, it's like, not to say that Americans aren't patriotic or wouldn't fight, but I don't think that there's a difference between blind patriotism and supporting a cause that objectively does not have the benefit or interest of Americans or really anyone around the world. Besides, like, I could imagine one place in the Middle East, besides them, even them, no, I wouldn't even think it would benefit the average Israeli either, because they have a very good likelihood of getting bombed, right? So it would be a huge disaster. Iran is in such a geographic location. There's a reason why empires could never conquer Iran, because of its geography, because of its landmass, and it would be a huge cock up on the world stage. I can't see it happening. I never say never, because like the world leaders are psychotic and crazy and oikophobic, but
well,
I don't know. It's just too much of an ask. I think
I don't think we'll see it. But my point though about the phrase "nothing ever happens."
Yeah.
I mean,
but it's not me being a smug Canadian. I'm just saying that I don't think Americans would even want that. I generally don't think.
I mean, even 2012 America didn't want to do a war with like troops on the ground in Syria. Doesn't mean that troops still didn't end up on the ground in Syria, and then of course the American government and its military intelligence apparatus lied to Trump about how many men we had there.
Yeah.
Which again, right? Like, good luck taking over. Like, this is and this is the uncomfortable question. I guess it also kind of leads into the English stuff as well. It's just that, for all the people like Yarvin or Patrick Deneen writing about like peaceful regime change, unless you're willing to talk about how you're going to take care of the intelligence community, good luck.
Yeah, true.
Because I'm sorry, I don't think those people operate in a whole other level. And civilian command and control, what's that?
It's cute that Gio thinks it matters what Americans think when it comes to. No, okay, listen. Okay, to be fair, Penultimo, I'm not barring the possibility, because obviously the interests of world leaders do not have their people's interests in mind. But I think that the only thing you could really hope for, kind of like when it comes to Ukraine right now, is that there would be enough smart people to do the calculations and to say, listen, we're not, even if we win a war in Iran, what would it cost to win a war in Iran for America? And that calculus is very, very, very stark. There would have to be like another 9/11 event. There would have to be a total unison, bipartisan event in which America would consent. Like, not the American public would need to consent to it, but I think for that big of an ask, even elites know that you need at least some kind of astroturfed consent to it. And I think that it would require tens of thousands of American body bags coming home to invade Iran. And I mean, definitely the Israeli government, yes, they are that crazy, and yes, they are that jingoistic, and they are that suicidal. But I don't know. I mean, there is precedent. Like, I remember Netanyahu, he wanted to drag Bush into a war with Iran, but then they came up with the whole Stuxnet virus thing to negate that, because they knew that if the Israelis were to bomb these alleged sites in Iran, that would basically be a tactic to drag America into a war with Iran. And that was in the mid-2000s when Bush was still there. I don't know. I mean, what do you think, Prude? I mean, you're an American. What do you think about that?
I don't know anymore. I don't. It's that straightforward. Half the country would probably say, if we wanted to, and we needed to, yeah, I'd do it. Others probably not so much. I don't think so anymore. I think that each conflict America gets itself into radicalizes the politics of the next generation.
Yes.
During Bush and the Kerry election in 2004, obviously the conflict was about Vietnam. When Trump ran in 2016 and again in 2020 and again now in 2024, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and not wanting foreign intervention colors the American, psyche. I mean, even progressives become warmongers the moment that they're in office, and in the same way progressives become peaceniks the moment that they're not in office. It's just they're the way there. The principled anti-war left has all disappeared, more or less. There's like 4 or 5 of them. And they're either like, very old school, like 1 to 2.0 socialists in America, or they're like quasi left libertarians, or they're just like, well, actually communism solves for everything, which is retarded. But it illustrates to me, I think, that if heaven forbid that, like, and eventually, and also, why bother about trying to do open peer-to-peer conflict when clearly you can cock up the entire world economy by giving some minor militia that owns a third of a particularly small territory weapons that will, do more damage to international shipping than a bunch of JDAMs ever will right now.
Yeah, true.
I mean, the conflict is radically changed.
Yeah. No, but like a war would prop up the economy. D. Martin says, I was drafted with poor blacks and Harlems and poor whites from Appalachia. Ain't no senator's sons. Do we have an actual Vietnam War veteran that listens to us? That's crazy.
Unless he's quoting just the song.
Oh yeah. No, but that's true though. Like, I mean, it was mostly poor rural Appalachian people or poor blacks from the inner cities that got drafted. We all know that if you had resources, you went to Canada or you did your trip to discover yourself a new ager in Europe. And we all know like those people didn't go to Vietnam. So would it be the same though? I mean, they would probably, if you have a diversified American military, you probably would have to sell it to libtards as like.
No, you just make sure that a particular population is the one that goes, not you.
No, true, but you'd have to sell it as like to go to war with Iran to defeat the mullahs, and Iran would be like trans rights are human rights, and therefore you have to fight the Iranians because trans rights are human rights around the globe, and that's how they can do it. Sort of like Obama with like we're going to educate women and girls from the Taliban, and it's like. That's what do you think? What do you think? Like not all Westerners. Like there are a lot of Ukrainians that grew up, ethnic Ukrainians, for example, in Canada. I mean, I understand why they would want to go and fight, especially if they have military experience. You know what I mean? But I mean, there were like Reddit battalions that like they literally like they're fighting the Russians because the Russians equal like whatever like stupid model of traditionalism, whatever like quote that they heard in a CNN article about Alexander Dugin, and that's what Russia represents, right? So you never know. I mean, it could happen with Iran, but yeah, Iran does. They do have like it's actually more acceptable to be trans than it is to be gay. So that's kind of a quandary there. But I think that it's too far off of a possibility.
And again, it's you can speculate about it forever, and again, I think that's why so many people do just say nothing ever happens. But again, I find that phrase so interesting, just because I see it, but also at the same time, things happen every day that radically alter the course and direction of events, and so how long do you think this little discursive moment of nothing ever happens? I mean, we're still saying nothing ever happens, despite the fact that we've got pretty good evidence from some of these oversight projects that say that, like, oh, like Thomas Matthew Crooks, according to like cell phone data, and also he had more than one phone on him. You know, we can trace the cell phone tower pings. Then all of a sudden, they're
you mean Maxwell Urich?
Yeah, right. You know,
are you a Maxwell Urich truther?
No. What I'm saying is that, like, Jesus, let me get my point across.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Like, you have people saying that, like, oh, these things happened. And then clearly, of course, all of the usual bits of no accountability, the usual bits about you can have a symbolic stepping down, but that doesn't really mean anything. In the same way that, like, even the Secret Service is still telling Trump, hey, don't do like large rallies outdoors because we can't protect you. Cough, cough, wink, wink. And it's just like it's either complete incompetence, which it's like the movie. It's Terry Gilliam's Brazil. Like it's either complete incompetence, and the government's not willing to admit it because we're the government. We never make mistakes, Mr. Tuttle. I mean Buttle. Like that's how it works. Or like actually no, something seriously did happen, and again we'll never know the truth. But clearly, what we do know is that like he got shot at. He had the famous photo. No one cares anymore. And then literally just a few days ago, a lot of people were thinking it was going to be Josh Shapiro for vice president. And now it's Tim Walz of Minnesota. And which, of course, Minnesota is a safe blue state. It hasn't gone red since, the 70s, 60s? And so it's been effectively a blue state for 60 years. It's a blue state even more so due to demographics. I mean, the flag of that state changed from a white Anglo-Saxon American, seal of a state to literally just a knockoff Somaliland flag. And that's the state of our politics. It's like, so yeah, things happen all the time, but at the same time, nothing ever happens. And I'm calm. And you'll say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow becomes today. And then so it becomes tomorrow. And then nothing ever happens because you decided to put it off. And I find it particularly sad, but not just sad in the sense of like, oh, like this is the way that we find ourselves to cope. Because I don't think you can just call it cope. What I also mean is that you can call it a way in which we all try to process information because it is too much. I stopped doing a lot of geopoll stuff because it was too much to track, and to do the research to do a weekly like lecture or stream on it just became too much. And so what do you do?
It's resignation in some ways.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. It's resignation. It can be cope. It can be, but at the same time, it's just like, well, why don't we just focus on what I'm doing, and rather than worry about this? Why worry about it tomorrow when you can worry about it today? and nothing ever happens. So don't worry about it. I don't want to say it's cope, but maybe it is. But also, like, I do think in some extent it's like a self-defense mechanism. Like it is an auto amputation. Like I'm going to cut myself out from this. Like the old phrase, like I'm scared to my wit's end, or I've just had my limit, or I'm at my top. Like, okay, well that means that you're either just done, you're frustrated, you're overstimulated. And for us who deal with, millions of information stimuli a day, like, well, then, yeah, like, why not cut a little bit of it off? Who gives a shit about Iran? Who gives a shit about the Houthis? Who gives a shit about this?
Yeah.
Like, and I mean,
they're just bombing Rafah. Yeah.
Like, I mean, isn't it? I mean, it's strange that, like, even you can mock it, you can laugh at it, you can do whatever, but like, also, it means that the traditional styles of like protest, activism, politics in general just do not work. Where the news cycle moves faster than it used to, even in the 1990s or the early 2000s with CNN and Fox News and all that jazz. Like, I hate the fact that I have the name memorized, and maybe to some extent I don't. Who knows? But like, remember Aaron Bushnell?
Who?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I'm joking. I know. Yeah, Aaron Bushnell. Yeah. No, it's funny because then you have like in protest movements, you have like stragglers that like they devote their whole lives to one thing, but then like they're sort of like the Japanese unit that stayed in the jungle.
Yeah, until like the 70s.
Yeah, it's like, no, the world moved on. I'm sorry, bro. No, but I mean, like, it is a tragedy, but after a while, you've seen enough videos of holding. How should I say it? You've seen enough videos from Gaza of holding unalive little ones to the camera. And you do like really get, you know what I mean? Like there is a detachment that people have because there really is not given proper time to anything, really. There's not given any proper attention or time to serious issues that affect people in their average lives nowadays. There's not really given enough attention to, for example, North America crumbling infrastructure. Nobody gives a fuck about the bridges. You know what I mean? Like it's a meme. It's just like, oh, the infrastructure. Okay, what are you gonna do about it? But there's a lot of like little danky towns that have like incredible amounts of mismanagement or just had their funds dry because they became like little pockmarked towns that don't generate anything anymore. And it's like, where are all those people going to go? Oh, you fill them with immigrants, or you let them die. You become fucking Gary, Indiana. Right? Now, maybe a lot of people will find it interesting to watch documentary on Gary, Indiana. But that being said, when it comes to actual problems, you know what I mean? Oh, well, we have to worry about this other thing right now. We have to worry about like the fucking satanic Olympics or whatever. It's like, I don't know. It's just, and it was always that way. It's always been that way. When the media controlled everything, when celebrity culture, mainstream celebrity culture was the it thing, people still disregarded real things. But I don't know, it's just everyone talks about it. Everyone says that nobody focuses on the real issues, but the problem is the real issues themselves are the product of a discursive negotiation in terms of what a civilization values. And right now our civilization values like a fucking coconut meme or whatever. I don't know. Like it's just, and then that'll pass too. And that'll pass. So yeah, like what real, I mean, okay, there is such a thing as reality. There is such a thing as crumbling infrastructure. There is such a thing as people not being able to buy groceries. There is such a thing as the Israelis bombing innocent civilians. There is such a thing as the Russians and Ukrainians killing each other en masse. There is such a thing as any of the upteenth massacres that go on every single day in Africa. But that being said, in terms of attention, in terms of what people actually care about, that's a negotiation. That is the point of postmodernism. That is the virtual hyperreality, not the reality on the ground of people losing their lives, of people losing their jobs, of people not being able to live, but the actual negotiation of what you give your psychic attention to en masse, on a massive scale, in terms of info technology and media. That's the negotiation. Even like I remember back in the day, people would talk about this shit back when I was a kid, and you know what? Nothing changed. You know what I mean? Like,
well, and that's the other part of why like the nothing ever happens thing there is because it is a realistic appraisal to an extent. Like Because, like you said, no one talks about the real issues. Well, what are the real issues? Well, you mentioned a really good one, like infrastructure, water, our medication, our industrial farming system is unsustainable, and most people will admit that happily.
Crime.
And crime. Although people talk about crime, thank God, because
people do talk about crime, yeah.
But and the thing about it is that is true. Like, I mean, even in protests too, that happen all the time. Like the song, like even with like JD Vance going on the RNC stage. What was it? It was about putting America first, and it's talking about like this anti-war song, as all those things take place. And so all of a sudden now, like you're right, all of these main issues. Well, now all of a sudden the attention span has gotten shorter.
Yeah.
And the way that we communicate has permeating effects. Like the Giga Chat is kind of a Lindy meme, right? Or even the Soy Jack. And there was a pretty interesting photo at the Harris Waltz conference. And I mean, literally a Soy Jack, like our friend Mine Got Niles made one. It was really good.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
And so because of that, it's harder to even talk about these issues. And it's also like, well, we don't even really live in a quote unquote liberal big L liberal society to where you can have dialogue about these things. We talk about them like, that still exists. And some channels do exist that have that purpose. But again, and maybe this sounds way too Marxist for chat or whatever, but it's just like, because we have commodified all aspects of the internet, people are going to cling to the parasocial. People are going to cling to the slappa, and it gets really hard to do anything about these things that actually do matter. And what's even more funny is that if you've thought about why these things matter, the people who actually do focus on these issues have talked about it, and sometimes they're the worst possible people you've imagined. Like, someone's talking about crumbling infrastructure. I guarantee you that some closeted homo at the Cato Institute has got a paper for you to read. In the same way that, actually, because we focused our attention elsewhere on these issues, we lose out on, well, do you want to be a single issue guy forever? And a lot of people say no. Because if you're a single issue guy forever, then a lot of people will look at you like you're crazy. I mean, like we see that on the timeline where you'll still see people talk about #0COVID. And it's like, whoa, like you're over, dude. Like that war is over. Your side technically won because, you radically transformed the medical apparatus of the entire Western world. But I mean, even then, right? Like we say, nothing ever happens because we all kind of have that quiet resignation, that quiet quitting, right? That like discursive political quiet quitting that like actually, no, this is how it's going to be in our lifetime. And unless there is some black swan event or some act of God or some force majeure that changes that, nothing happens. Things get worse.
Yeah. But those people are vile, though, honestly. Like, I don't want to Fed post, but like, they're just the most terrible people, in my opinion. But anyways, that's my own personal gripe with the zero.
Well, no. They're in a hell of their own creation.
Oh yeah, they deserve it, 100%. Yeah,
they deserve what they get. But at the same time, right, the issues that do matter are so in your face now that like you can't help but address it. And I mean, like what's happened in England is an excellent example. The obvious has been made very manifest.
And the political class hates you. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people kind of accepted that. But I mean, you've gotten to a point now where in any other point in the history of the human world, of any civilization, doesn't matter if you're an ancient Hittite or you are, a small fiefdom in Prussia or like, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. In any other point in time in history, this would be classified as an invasion. This would be classified as an ethnic war. This would be classified as anything. And so people have woken up to the fact that 3 English girls were brutally stabbed and died. And the fact is it's been going on for decades and that it's been covered up by the state because no one wants to be called racist, or they just want to get it over with and not let you address it. And now you're witnessing large swaths of the UK population, do what we see all the time here in America, in Canada too, with just like looking for faces, looking for profile pictures, seeing what matches to other social media accounts, so they can report you to the British government.
Yeah,
and report you to MI5.
Yeah, Antifa's doing that right now in Britain.
Yeah, I know that they are, and and so that's where we're at, right? Like that's happening right now as we speak. And Keir Starmer had literally said it doesn't matter.
Yeah. When it comes to every other ethnic protest, yeah.
What do you do? Other than watching horror, like I no words.
Yeah. No, but that's what I mean. A lot of patriots are going to go to jail soon. And yeah. A lot of people that genuinely care, and the way that the media is framing it, the way that leftoids are leftoid activists are framing it, it's just like they're concocting this narrative. I'm even looking at tweets right now by some fucking about this diabolical, both sides reporting prioritizing the impact of the police, no mention of Muslims being attacked. No, the media in Britain, especially in the UK, has mentioned nothing but Muslims being attacked. They will never, and this is how blind these people are. And they all have the same affectations. They all have the same, pride flags and Palestine flags and coconuts. And they all have the same aesthetic signifiers. They all have their pronouns in the bio. And there's multiple videos of Muslims or even just migrants in general attacking average Britons, but they'll only focus on the ones where like some skinhead or whatever like went to a mosque, or you know what I mean? Like this is over and over and over again. And it's the same with two-tier policing in Britain. But did I cut you off, Prude? Or...
No, you're good. Keep going.
No, I was going to say that it really I saw this comic, and of course they're doing the whole thing if you're marching with someone that's got a tattoo of the Austrian painter flag that you're one yourself, blah blah blah. And I always see this over and over again. And it's funny to have the timeline. If you go to the For You tab on Twitter, it's throwing me nothing but leftoid tweets that go viral in Britain.
Yeah.
About like how the protesters are evil. And there's always like some like some fucking footy player or some journalist like Osh Sarkar. And there's always like they always have this obsession with like older people, like grandmas against Austrian painter, blah blah blah. But I think what it really is, I remember I saw this illustration, and I think it was Actian Press that posted it, and it was, I believe, an old Courier and Eyes illustration. It was some kind of more stabbing a British guy, and there's these two police officers in the background hiding behind a tree. And it said like an Englishman will brag about almost being stabbed, but they say that, well, at least our police aren't vicious. Like, and I think that the thing though is that you have to look at the history of the UK and Britain in particular, where a lot of the people that had a form of daringness or really embodied the Anglo spirit, a lot of them were either expansionists that went to do great things, that colonized, maybe didn't do so other terrible things. But the point being is that, or they died in the First and Second World Wars. And so the UK always did have this like very passive, very like, quietist approach to law and order. And they always crack down on protests, and it's never making a fuss. It's always having a stiff upper lip. And in Canada, by the way, also was imported this sort of attitude, right? Like, you focus on your business, I'll focus on mine. This is like, there's actually I believe a Gordon Lightfoot song about Canada. And so you have this attitude where any form of social deviation was not tolerated. And that really did work for a time. But now you have the modern politics of transnational progressivism combined with the migrant crisis, combined with a political class that has made it clear from the Tories to Labour absolutely hates its own population and is not willing to do anything about it. You have those old values that really did benefit English people and Irish people and so forth, and Canadians, that in the Anglosphere in general. But now that those old values, you give a modern circumstance and you put jet fuel on, or you put gasoline on it, and that doesn't work anymore. And now people are so frustrated that they're willing to go on the streets because they have no option. You know what I mean? If you're a working class person in the UK and you see all of this that's happening, and you see that the political class gives you no option, gives you no way of actually policing yourself or fighting back, then of course this is going to happen, right? Because people have, patience has a limit. And people in the UK, they're some of the most patient people in the world. And their values have been totally hijacked against them. And so when you reverse engineer values that made a people great and you use them against them, it's like after a while, there can only be so much. You know what I mean? So yeah. Those values that made the Anglosphere great, I hate to say it, can only work on the people it was originally intended for. And that's just a fact. And you could say that's racist or whatever. But reality is reality. Is that in actuality, some values you can't export in a bottle to the world. And you can't expect just because they come over to another nation that it's going to magically change. And I agree. The Anglos are some of the best people in the world. And it's very sad what's happening to them. And me being in Canada, I'm even more directly a product of that Anglosphere than even America, because we all know America, it was in rebellion against the British Crown, whatever, blah blah blah. But the point being is that this was in some ways inevitable, and it only took a horrific event to truly demonstrate that to most people. And now a lot of those people, they're going to face incredible consequences, and the media will spit on them, and leftist activists will dox them, and people will call them horrific things. And not that I condone violence or whatever, not to say that's only an issue with Muslims, by the way. That's another thing too. I'm very well aware that there's nefarious people that want to frame it in sort of like neocon terms. But
yeah, the classic anti-counter jihad type deal. And I mean, on one hand, I get it, because it's like they have no problem framing it. I mean, themselves, these immigrant groups, framing it as an Islamic issue. Right. They don't mind playing into that because it works for them, because Islam is a unifying force in which they can say, we're the other, we will conquer you. But at the same time, I think just labeling it purely as that issue is like, no, it's also an immigration issue. Like, just point and center, like, violent extremists should not be here, period. And I don't, and that's always the problem is how easy like that little bait and switch can happen, to where it's like, oh, actually, no, you're just like an anti-jihadist or whatever. It's like, no, I shouldn't be here, period. I don't care what they're saying or what their gripe is. Like, they're still gonna, go after me as much as whatever other group that they hate. And I think that in this instance, what becomes very clear is that this is clearly the product of decades of poisoning and subverting a country made manifest. And I mean, the same, and what we're witnessing
same with Ireland as well, yeah,
the same with Ireland as well. I mean, also what we're witnessing too are riots very similar to like integration in the 60s.
Yeah.
The difference is that, like, these people haven't been here since, like, 1650 or whatever. Like, it's not like
there were like the original, for example, like Indian immigrants that went to England in small numbers.
Well, England doesn't have a problem like America did with like its like a former slave population. It just doesn't have that. What this is an entirely modern byproduct of modern immigration.
Yes.
And so we're witnessing people riot to the fact that, like, you're telling me I'm supposed to integrate with people that like stab my kids? No. Shouldn't happen, and it won't happen. But just like what we saw in American integration, the cops will come after them. The military will be called in. There will be all sorts of stuff going after them in such a way to be very similar to how we saw bayonets pointed at American citizens over integration and things like that. I imagine we'll see the same thing in photos and in videos. I'm sure that it already exists, and I haven't seen it, as Keir Starmer brings the security state down. Because, like, they can, the Tories were just going to do all that they can to say, oh, about immigration. And they made it worse. But they were never going to attack their own voters. They were never going to attack their own base. But now that Labor's in charge, they can. They can go after the Little Englander. They can go after the North FC guy who doesn't like immigration. They can go after anyone who says, if you have an opposing opinion, it's over.
No, but it's so disgusting the way that these activists are framing it, that they're talking about, like, it's so great that there's these counter protesters and they're fighting against evil racists, and we live in such a great multicultural society, and it's like, well, what about those children that their lives were ended? Oh, but you see, he was born in Wales and he wasn't Muslim and he was Rwandan. Does it really matter? He didn't belong.
Oh, you're telling me he's from a place known for the Rwandan genocide?
Were they literally machete people? They machete people? Whoa! No, but the point being is that, listen, the average people that are protesting and rioting in England right now and in Ireland, they don't really care if it's just Muslim. I mean, okay, yeah, but the Muslims, disproportionate amount of it, okay, whatever. But I don't think that, just to put it to bed, I know there's people like Tommy Robinson, blah, 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 but I don't think the average person in the streets right now, they really give a shit about, okay, this means we have to go to war with the Middle East. We have to go another GOWAD. I don't think they really care if they're Muslim or not, who is stabbing their children. I think they're just average working class people that have had enough. That this election, the last election in Britain, has demonstrated that there's no option for them between the Tories and Labour, right? And who knows, maybe in Canada, though it's different because there's a lot of aesthetic differences between Poilievre and Trudeau. But in terms of policy, I don't really see them having that much of a difference. But it's complicated because Canadians, we become so Americanized that I don't really see these riots happening to the same extent. You know what I mean? So it's different. But that there in the UK, it's, they don't have any other option. And that's really the tragedy of it. Because for a time, a lot of people can tolerate this sort of autonomous managerial class that has run the UK, even before the Blair years. But nowadays, it's becoming so intolerable that, you know what I mean? It's just, yeah.
Yeah, I have no words.
Yeah, there is no words. No, really.
Other than, I think that's what we're going to see is a complete, and what we have seen in the past is just a militarization of the British armed forces or police state intelligence towards the average person. You will see
the media
arrests
as well in Britain,
and of course they'll turn on him. This has no room for hate or whatever, and it's just like, everyone knows that it's bullshit. You can't tell me that. I mean, of course they'll believe it. I mean, the people on the left will believe it. It's just, I guess it's so hard to remain and witness it. I mean, is it good to see them do what they're doing? I mean, it feels cathartic, yeah. Do I know that they're going to get arrested in the same way that, like, a lot of the J6 people did? Yeah, I know that's happening. And will we see a lot of British Zoomer Labour voters turn in their parents and grandparents? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So if you're gonna, again, if you live out there and you're doing anything, do everything you can to not get caught. But also, it doesn't matter if you stay home and you post about it, because they'll arrest you there too. And it raises an interesting question, though, about, like, Elon Musk commenting on this. He called him two-tier Kier or whatever about, anarcho-tyranny and policing. Because it's just like, again, it takes the world's wealthiest man and the world's largest Redditor to point out the fact, and he said it himself today, civilization has to continue. You can't have civilization like this.
No.
Period. You just can't. Is that going to stop them from trying and squeezing blood from it, literal blood, not from stones, but from the children of England, to keep it going? Yeah, they will. And perhaps that's like the real black pill out of it all when you say nothing ever happens, because I doubt that you're going to see meaningful change in the direction you want it to about kicking these people out, because they should not be there. They should have never been there.
Nope.
And the greatest tragedy of what we're seeing in all countries, mine included, mine's the worst demographically speaking, So as much as American pundits want to talk about how bad Europe is, demographically, they're way better off than I am.
No, even Canada demographically, I hate to say it.
Yeah.
It's changing, though. It's rapidly changing because of Justin, but yeah.
And that's just how it's, and again, that's the weird part. It's like, oh, that is it. I guess maybe that's the logical conclusion of nothing ever happens is a black pill at the end of the road.
No, but the thing is, I don't want a black pill. I mean, the situation currently is black pilling, but I still, believe in the spirit of those people, either in Britain, in Ireland, in France, in Germany. Like you want to believe in the spirit of those people. You want to believe that not everybody is like that. Not everybody is like this, this sort of like disheveled mass of like the framing of it is so ridiculous to say that like, oh, you see, America, Britain was always a multicultural country. It's like, that's no. Britain, Ireland, France, Germany, all those places have a distinct history with a distinct people that created that history. And to say that it was always multicultural is such a huge lie. Oh, but if you go back to like the Norman conquest of this and the Roman invasion of that, it's like, no, that's...
Yeah, you
that's
proved my point.
Yeah, you proved my point. Yeah. Europeans influencing the ethnogenesis of other Europeans. That really means that you need a Rwandan person you let in your country to then stab 3 girls. So the Roman conquest of England, that means that just letting everybody then. It's like, what's the logic in that?
Yeah.
I mean, there is no logic, because the logic is this sort of the conglomeration of ideas that formulate the body of transnational progressivism. That's what it really is about. It's not about the actual logic of selling it. They don't have to sell it to people anymore, because their hope is that people will transform in such a ways that they don't have to sell it anymore. That's why they're just openly saying, well, it's like revenge over colonialism, and that's it. And
yeah, I mean, it reiterates everything that we already take for granted. Like, oh no, this is just a pure ethnic animus.
Yes. Yeah.
And anyone who says otherwise, of course, is lying to you.
I think but the thing is, they believe it themselves, though. That's the real problem, is that a lot of activists, they believe it themselves. And so they're not lying, really. To them, it's not lying. To them, it's the consensus reality of what they believe to be normal, decent opinion that culminates in where the trajectory of history is going. So you really can't you really can't argue with that, right?
No.
It's like the right side of history argument. To them, it's not lying. To them, they truly believe that this is the terminus point of all human civilization, is that we are going to be one people or whatever. And all of the problems and all of the realities of having very different people within the same nation, to them, that's irrelevant. In fact, it doesn't exist. In fact, those grape gangs in Rotherham, that was all a product of racism, really. And when they were proven to do it, that itself is a product of, the consciousness of colonialism. That's what it is. And so colonialism actually made them grape those young girls, and young boys sometimes as well. Yeah. So that's what they believe, and you can't argue with that, really.
No, you can't.
Yeah, but what are you going to do? It's at the end of the day, it is basically a huge amount of resentment. That's what it is. It's pure resentment. Like it's and for all of like the people that work in these activist groups to make it so, and now they have the backing of the state, of course. It's incredible treachery. It's incredible. You know what I mean? Because they really don't value the history of the UK. They don't value the things that these people in this small little island, the things that they managed to accomplish, the things that they managed to give to the world. They don't view it that way. They view it as evil. They view how can you view your ancestors as supremely evil? Your ancestor could be Genghis Khan, that colonized, invaded, and graped half the world. But still, to look at the magnanimity of that, I'm not to say I condone whatever, but like to look at the impact that those people from a little gray, dingy island had in the world, and to just give it up and say that was evil and that was terrible and that was worth nothing. It's like, remember that Bowden speech about the World War II veterans?
Yeah.
and they died for this, and they died for that, and they fought for this. It's like, no, it's true. Did they fight for that? Right? It's, yeah, I know it's a meme, but I don't know. Maybe it's just that when you actually analyze what a small amount of people relative to the world's population actually accomplished and did. Not to say that the Anglos didn't do a lot of evil. Not to say the Anglos didn't create concepts that were, corrosive nowadays. But shelving all of that aside, I mean, a small little island in the middle that sits atop Europe, colonizing half the world, creating the Industrial Revolution, creating ways of life and studies and art and literature and culture, the likes of which the world has never seen before. To just fucking spit upon that is disgusting. And it's abominable. It's subhuman in a way. To just take your past and spit upon it when you come from a great people. And I don't know if there's much more to say. And people like Keir Starmer, like he was a product of that empire. And look what he's doing. And it's disgraceful. It's utterly disgraceful. And I feel for all of our people listening to us that are from the UK, either in Ireland or Britain or Wales or Scotland. I feel for you. It's terrible because hey, I come from a country where my political class hates me, but it's, yeah, I think us people in the Anglosphere, we all share the same problems in a lot of ways. But what are you going to do?
I don't know. But something has to give, and either one side, I mean, that's all the nature of all conflicts. One side wins, and the other submits, or it doesn't there. I mean, still, our friend Vade Poped, do you follow his Substack, Gio?
Sometimes, but what did he write recently?
Well, he wrote a reflection on submission by Michelle Houellebecq, or however you pronounce it. And he, forgive me if I butcher the name, but it was an interesting reflection about this book that was written a few years ago that prophesizes about some French leftist intellectuals that like convert to Islam for the benefits, and how the communists and all the leftists would side with the Islamists to keep Marie Le Pen out of office. And he reflected on it, and he says, well, it got some things right and it got some things wrong. That we haven't seen a great mass defection. But we have begun to see the groups come together, to stop the far right. I mean, that was the big thing about the French elections, was this is like all ideological pretenses do not matter as long as you stop the right. Doesn't matter who won the popular vote as long as you stop the right. And that's been the nature of our parliamentary systems in America. The same thing, really, post-war, is just stop anything from happening.
Right.
And I mean, it's a good review, and he also offers a really beautiful testimony to his Roman Catholicism, which, while I'm not Catholic, I thought it was really moving. I thought it was a very powerful testimony to his faith. And I'd recommend people read it. And it is one of the most important books, I think, written in the last 10, 15 years, just because you're looking at the fact that in the midst of these powerful warmongering minorities that can turn cities into ghettos and the rest, people are happy to side with that if it means that, the change to fix it never comes. And then the same thing on the right happens too, where it's like the beautiful loser syndrome, like, well, as long as I have my principles, I can die with honor. And it's like, well, in a temporal conflict like this one, that doesn't mean anything because it means you lost. And if you're so, turned on to say, I told you so, after the city's burnt down, you're no better than the people that you say to oppose. You're functionally the same.
Right.
And I kind of feel bad, chat, that like we come back after a week's break and it's the worst stuff in the world is happening right now, and it's just not a happy time. And I apologize for that.
No, but isn't that sort of like
but I feel like that is the sometimes you need that splash of cold water.
Well, it's like Trudeau, like you redact your enemies, they win. It's like if you riot too, then you're just as bad as them. It's like we're not saying that like everyone who is a migrant is an evil person or whatever. We're just saying that you have to really question. Okay, I have to choose my words carefully. why are certain people entitled to migrate to Western countries en masse? And don't say it's because of colonialism, because those systems, there were revolutions fought, millions of people died. For example, thousands of people died ending the transatlantic slave trade. Most of them were British, by the way. Millions of people died in post-colonial wars and revolutions. The empires were more or less folded by external forces. The people that were left with their own countries, and I guess freedom wasn't enough, right? I guess revenge is more sweet than anything. So you have to ask yourself, okay, if you believe that people have a right to their own nations, if you believe that people have a right to their own integrity, right? Then why is it that it only seems that it's just and fair that there's only multiculturalism in certain places? I know this is like a very, very old, very old right-wing talking point, right? But it's worth bringing up again, especially in light of recent events. Now, you know that there's clear problems with certain segments of those migrants, and you know that the police are not going to do anything about it. So, at the end of the day, do you just accept it and say that, well, this is justice? But then, because initially it was sold as, well, eventually they're going to integrate, and eventually there's going to be this wonderful multicultural society filled with ethnic foods, and it's going to be, basically what Toronto was like in the 1990s, right? But then after a while, that's not true, because people are different, because people truly are different, and there's no amount of coping that you could ever explain for that. And it's intellectually dishonest. And yeah, at the base of it, they basically just do hate white people. That's at the end of the day.
I mean, yeah,
that's what it is. Yeah, let's be real.
Utopianism disguised as ethnic animus disguised as utopianism.
Right. No, but they don't have to give you utopianism anymore. They're just
they don't.
They're outright saying
suck
it.
It up.
Yeah,
they just say suck it up. Accept it.
There was a Muslim account where it was a bunch of British police officers in a mosque, right? They were praying, right? And I believe it had a Pakistani flag in the bio next to the coca, next to the what's the Palestinian symbol? The watermelons, right? That said, "It's our country now, bitch." That was the tweet. It got almost 100,000 likes. It's our country now, bitch. Right? So, I don't know. It's very hard to be objective about these things. It's very difficult to not Fed post. And, and there's people that, wherever you may think of their beliefs, not that I condone a lot of it, but there are people rotting in jail because they expressed an opinion online in the UK. And there's grapists that get less than them. There are people that have raped little kids that have gotten lesser sentences than what's his last name? Milius? Sam, Laura Tyler's husband.
I couldn't tell
God, I can't believe I forgot. Sam, is it Milius?
I know his name is Sam.
Yeah. He's spending more time in prison. Milia, not Milius.
Thank you.
Milius is the writer. Yeah. The screenplay writer. Sam Milia is getting more time than migrants that have raped little kids in Britain. It's true. So, fuck, man. That's the real priority of the British state right there. That's the real priority of the state. You have to really look at by the fruits you shall know them. Sam Milia is serving whatever you think. Listen, not that I condone patriarchal, blah, blah, blah. Not that I condone everything that Mark Collette has said, blah, blah, blah. Who cares, right? The point being is that for expressing an opinion that a court ruled was his right to express, another court said that it didn't matter because it vaguely threatened someone, right? An original court ruled that he had a right to sticker post, but another court overturned it. And so he's spending more time in prison for putting up a sticker compared to migrants who have done unspeakable things to little kids. That should really sink in, right? And I know it's like, okay, I know there's a lot of accounts that they post doom prawn and they post migrant video attacks like Radio Geno or whatever. I know that's demoralizing. I'm not a fan of those accounts. But at the end of the day, reality is reality at the end of the day. Sorry, I'm repeating myself, but I'm trailing off. But no, it's true. It's incredible. No, it's incredible. And in America, there's similar feats of injustice as well. So, you know, and in Canada, yeah. But this is incredibly depressing, Prudent. What are we going to do?
I know. And I somewhat apologize, but I feel like it's kind of important to cover that. Because, I mean, I thought it was particularly interesting on my timeline. And again, it goes back to what we choose or how things work. This all sounds so lefty. I don't know how I feel about it. But even at this point, you know, I think that political orthodoxies for like strict adherence to ideas, I mean, as long as you believe in things like hierarchy, clear differences between groups, that kind of stuff, like, I mean, you can kind of get away with a lot of analysis. But I mean, like, the Olympic thing, you know, like the whole a biological male, they changed the rules. Let
oh God, that stupid thing. Yeah,
it was so hard for me to care. I was like, I was just.
Those Zadie Slats tweet were funny though. I got to say they were pretty good. They're pretty good.
You know, and it was just really hard to care. I was like, okay, cool. You posted a little South Park, Randy Savage clip, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about that. And again, it makes you a single issue person. But at the same time, like that, what I care about is the only issue that matters. You know, like the immigration and the demographic side. That's the only issue that matters.
Yeah, but I didn't like a man beating up an Italian woman. I didn't like that.
I don't like it either. But I mean,
at the same time, it's like, you know.
I guess on my list of priorities to care about, you know, that was on the lower end. Does that make me bad? Yeah, maybe. Am I not virtue signaling or moral fagging hard enough, as they like to say on right-wing Twitter? Maybe. I don't know.
There are people that are using pro wrestling as an example. I'm like, bro, you realize, okay, there are intergender matches in pro wrestling, but that's a work. It's not like you take a male pro wrestler and a female pro wrestler. I don't care. Like, you know what I mean? It's a work. It's not. It's fucking stupid. Okay, why even talk about it? Why even? It's stupid. It happened. The satanic, whatever. It was, you know, it wasn't even that. It was even like offensive to people who were like pagans as well. You know, the whole opening ceremony.
Oh, the opening ceremony. Yeah, it was an insult to Greek, the ancient Greek gods, an insult to the Last Supper and Christ. I mean,
yeah,
you know, if you wanted to, even if you're not Christian or pagan or whatever, like what I mean, even if you're an atheist, it's like, man, if you wanted to just like offend everybody, let's just like blaspheme some of the two oldest in classical religions of the Western world, you know, like the Greek pantheon, and Christ. It's just like, you know, fuck.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. Like the Olympics they've been like that for a number of years now. It's not really even about the athletics anymore. It's about the spectacle. You know what I mean? So it's just even Pope Francis, you know, it's so crazy. Even Pope Francis had to come out against it, you know, one of the most liberal popes in history. Yeah. That's how bad it is. So that's what I mean. It's incredible. But like the whole thing with the Olympian who is allegedly a man or a woman, who cares? It's red meat for conservatards people. You know what I mean? Like it's red meat for like the boomer conservative to salivate over. I don't know. It's like, I hate to say it, but even like the drag time. I shouldn't say it. I shouldn't counter.
No, that needs to be destroyed. Bad. I'm sorry.
I was listening. I shouldn't. No, I was just saying. Like I was listening to this. I shouldn't even mention that I listen to Red Scare sometimes. No, but like the whole drag thing, like the drag thing was more of like, there was like a history behind it. Was like a performance thing, right? But nowadays that it's become like this identity. Like you even have like these old school drag people that are like, yeah, this is kind of stupid because like we didn't conceive of ourselves as trans. We were like just gay guys that like to dress up and like, you know, we like, you know, we hung around women and I shouldn't say it. No, I'm not saying. Listen, I'm not making an argument that like there's your trad, like gays against Hoovers, like LGBT without the T. That's real trad. I'm not saying that. No, I'm just saying that it's like ridiculous now. But I do think like the Drag Time Story Hour issue does drag away from a lot of uncomfortable things that conservatives don't like to talk about. That's the point I'm trying to make. But yeah, go ahead, Prue.
Oh, what? And again, I feel like it almost requires just and it goes, and I think one of the most important things that I've seen sort of talked about, and this is why I like Substack more than I do Twitter these days, because there's still you can have a long drawn out thought, and you can back it up, or you can claim or theorize it, and you can have interesting discussion. I think e-drama that's good e-drama is usually on Substack, not so much Twitter. I'll not say that there isn't Kino on Twitter, but I mean, where you can have some decent back and forth with people, it's on Substack. And I think one of the most important concepts that's come out in the last couple of years out of all this was, did you read the Schwab piece about psychosecurity, or when he talked about it? I think that's one of the most important, and a lot of people will meme about it because they'll reference like SCP fan fiction or whatever, but like it builds off of all forms, and me especially, like it builds off of the Christian ideal of watchfulness. You must be at guard at all times, because if not, the enemy does get in you. And I don't mean like, oh, you demons in you, but I mean like the things that distract you from what matters, whether it be the Almighty or whatever project that you're focused on or your issues, can easily be derailed by a piece of candy, a piece of coal, a piece of clickbait, a piece of like AI art, a piece of slop, a fat Wojak,
like the TikTok video.
Yeah. And so in doing that, I think that that's a big part of all this. Is that you can, if you have any sense of like self-vigilance or watchfulness or like self-conscious about your behavior, you can watch that stuff radically change you very, very quickly. And I mean, it was partially why I deactivated for a little bit, sort of just to take a break. And I mean, people can give me shit for it or whatever, then call me whatever. I think it's important to be mindful of your conduct. And so, I've noticed over the course of like the last, like, especially I want to say the last 5 months, I've been far more cavalier, far more loose with my language, far more Fed posty, far more angry.
Yeah, you gotta stop that, man.
I know. You don't need to tell me twice.
Yeah, me too.
And so it was just like, oh, yeah, really not liking what I am right now. And like you take a step back from it, and you sort of like kind of compartmentalize. And then all of a sudden you sort of look around and it's just like, oh, wow, it's so quickly to just build up a rage that you can't do anything. I mean, you can. There are healthier ways to outlet yourself and to do that. But I mean, it's just like, making yourself look more and more unoptical out of what I find to be sometimes very righteous anger and indignation.
Yeah.
I get it. I suddenly get it. I suddenly get how easy it is to snap and to be tempted and to say, screw your optics, I'm going in. I get that temptation. I really do. And especially right now, of all times. But of course, it's not like it was 10 years ago, where you could say these things and people would laugh it off, think you're crazy, or you'd be back to normal the next time. No. People get subpoenaed over what they say. And you have to be really careful about it.
Here, for example.
No, but I mean, it's just like, things are forever. Like there will be a record online. I mean, you can delete tweets and stuff, but I mean, even tweets that I've deleted one of them was a really bad joke I made about a year and a half ago about a diary from Ukraine. I made an offhand remark about a certain other diary that was famous, and deleted that tweet. And then, it still makes its way on Instagram and TikTok, and I'm like, fuck.
Oh man, that was crazy. That's like the Peter Devitt's sugar cookie tweet was on iFunny. That was funny.
I mean, iFunny is like the record for
best content.
Yeah. I mean, it is like a library of Alexandria for a lot of like right-wing Twitter tweets.
Especially Landshark tweets, yeah.
I like him a lot. I really do. I don't know. I find him to be a respectable character, and
Oh
I
yeah.
like him. And I think that might be the way going forward. Is just to stay locked.
Yeah, notice how like he never. Well, I mean, I guess.
I mean, he opens his follower requests. He lets people follow him, but I mean, like he's pretty much locked all the time.
Yeah, but I mean, like he's got a poetics about him as opposed to like things that are like when you're fun. I like even recently with this incident in the UK, like it really does drag the sort of righteous poetic anger out of you, and then you do like you're like, oh, should I really say that? Should I really quote tweet that leftoid? Should I really do this? But then it's like, no, these people are genuinely evil, and it's I mean, people debate. I mean, I grew up, I'm an old head, so I remember like people would debate about the influence of the Anglo, and they'd make jokes about it. And it's like the Anglos gave us liberalism, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, I mean, like I said, like the Anglos were and still are an incredibly creative people. And it's just, it takes a lot. It takes a lot to come from a very small population in a very dingy little island and conquer half the world. That, you know what I mean? And you could say, like, yes, they did commit a lot of evil acts along the way. I'm not denying that, right? But still, if you look at it from a greater historical perspective, it's like it's equivalent to the Roman Empire, really. I mean, in some ways, you could say the British did more than I shouldn't say that. Maybe as an Italian, I know I shouldn't say that, but the Anglo did equivalent and in some ways exceeded the Roman. So, that's just being fast. And listen, I'm Italian. I'm just being honest. It pains me to say it. It pains me to say that the Anglos have done probably more than us Romans. But it is. Take it back, friend. Take it back. No, come on. You can't compare. I mean, the British conquered way more lands than just the Mediterranean. But I like to believe the Anglos had us Romans in their heart while they were taking over half the world. You know what I mean, Prude?
What's that old line? Like Rome is the eternal thought in all people.
Yeah.
Of all empires, like Rome is the eternal brain. The eternal thought we go back to.
Yeah.
There's that glory or that thought of Rome, and so you go back to it. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that. You go back to Rome.
The average Italian's basically Algerian. Fuck off. The average Italian's basically Algerian.
I wouldn't agree with that in the slightest.
That's funny though. That is funny. Yeah. Maybe Sicilians, but not, Oh man. I know, but I think like, okay, to save the show from blackpilling, I do think it is a time to reflect on the greatness of certain, it is a time to reflect on the history of the British Empire. It is a time to reflect on what the English gave to the world. And it is a time to reflect on all of those things that created such a unique people. Even though it might be lost to the sands of history, like us Romans were lost to the sands of history. Well, I shouldn't say that. People still talk about the Roman Empire. It's just that it is, I think, a time of reflection. And I know it sounds so stupid and it sounds so cliched, but there was that one line. What did Keir Starmer say about this is not the way, and everyone deserves to be safe? It's like, yeah, you're right. Everyone deserves.
Well, and that's
to
what
be
Elon
safe.
Musk quote tweeted to me. It's just like, well, what about the people? What about regular Britons? Don't they deserve to be safe?
Yeah. No, because people like Keir Starmer doesn't believe that. No, of course not.
Yeah, of course not.
And it's sad. And neither do the Tories. The Tories, one of the oldest political parties in the world that sustained Britain all the way through. And look what they've become, right? And it's incredible. It's sad. It's very sad. And I don't know. It's just... But I think you should, if you are a British person, if you are of Anglo stock, if you are an Irish person, then you should, or Scottish, then you should reflect on history. You should reflect on these things. And you should think that, I'm not what the media tells me I am. I'm not what my political class tells them what they are. That there is something greater there. That there is a pool of history. that forms a people. And it just that's what you should focus on. And yes, the ugliness, you shouldn't neglect. How should I say it? You shouldn't neglect the ugliness of political realities. You shouldn't neglect what's right in front of you. But God forbid you forget your past. God forbid you forget your ancestors. God forbid you forget what made you great. And so that should be the message, right? And people that want to say that, oh, this was all the working of political people like Nigel Farage and all of that, that's all bullshit. Because they're trying to rob you of what you believe in your heart these things are about, which is the organic displacement, the organic, how should I say it? The organic frustration of people. That's what the real cause of these events are. Not the bullshit that fucking Nigel Farage or Tommy Robinson Jedi mind tricked you into going out in the streets and rioting. That's bullshit. That's a fucking BBC concocted narrative that's being furthered by left-wing politicians and activist people that has no basis in reality. So, like I say, don't neglect what's right in front of you, but don't forget what's the Kamala Harris line, Prude?
I'm not unburdened by what has been.
Yeah. So, yeah. So you could say the same about America and Canada and elsewhere in Europe. And even here in Canada, man, it's very hard to see sometimes because of what Canada is. But there is a great history there. And there were great men who created this nation from France and from Britain. Well, and from Ireland and elsewhere. But like, you know what I mean. France, Ireland, Scotland, Britain. And when you look at the history, when you look at the land that these men conquered, and it's inspirational, you know. I remember when I was a kid, we went to the IMAX theater. I recently tore it down in Niagara Falls, and we watched this film. It was called Maid of the Mist, and it went through the history of the Niagara region from the British, the War of 1812, up until the 19th century. And yeah, you know, it's they probably would never show that to to Zoomer kids nowadays in Canada.
Oh, probably not.
You know, yeah. I think you can find it on YouTube, Maid of the Mist. Yeah. We always watch, every year we watched that when we were kids. We would go, and my cousin actually worked at the theater. So it was cool because, you know, my cousin was there and, but yeah, they fucking tore it down. They tore down the IMAX in Niagara Falls. I was so pissed off. But, yeah. Well, you come from Texas, Prude. I mean, look at the great history of Texas, you know?
Oh, I mean, again, it goes back to like the great deracination that we talked about at the beginning. It's just like, oh, it's more HEB and Buc-ee's now and Whataburger than it is the Alamo, you know, San Jacinto. You can all go to hell. I will go to Texas. Like, it's not, it's depressing, you know, which is so sad. Like, I think one of the coolest things that you can do as a regular person, especially if you live in the States, is like, if you see a historical marker up ahead, pull over and go to it. I guarantee you'll be the first person who's visited that historical marker since it was put up. Take a photo of it. Learn about it. Research it.
Do you think the Texas identity has become kitschfied, in other words?
Oh, of course. No one remembers the Alamo. They go to the Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum right next to it.
Oh my God. Is there a Whataburger next to it too?
I don't know. I haven't been there. I haven't been to the Alamo since 10
You were a
years
kid?
ago. 2013, 11 years ago.
Oh.
So it's been a hot minute.
There you go.
Yeah, I'd have to go back. Don't know what's around there right now.
The basement of the Alamo, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, things to think about, things to look at, things to consider. It's all crazy right now.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
It's a good question. What are you going to do? You know? That's the funny thing about it is that
quiet desperation for this is the British way.
Yeah. Things are a bit naked right now. Yeah, I mean, you can't even joke about it. It's so depressing.
No, but that's what I mean. You still have to believe in these people. You still have to believe in the spirit that created these things. You know,
I mean,
like
those who do, will win out. I think in the end. In that respect.
You know, it's like after the election in France. Like I saw those fucking people on the streets, all these like migrants and like these communist leftoids that just they're like, you're racist, we're not leaving, blah blah blah. It's depressing, but but then you never know, the tide can turn as well, so that's, as long as you believe, that's all you can hope for, really.
And again, it goes back to that psychosecurity thing. Like, unless you have the ability to maintain and stay mission oriented, where this is a decades and generations long ordeal,
yes,
then if not, you'll get filtered real quick.
But that's what I mean. Like, it's going to take decades, and it could be like, that was an interesting thing when I was reading Canticle for Leibowitz. We're going to talk about the next maybe not next episode, but like when time radically slows down to like it was the medieval times, like people don't really think about things in terms of decades, let alone centuries. And I think that there, as blackpilling as the current reality is, to say that all of these peoples and all of these nations that have done so many great things, that they're going to disappear from the earth and that's it, right? I mean, you want to believe that the greater plan is that eventually people rediscover themselves. And that's all you can really hope for. Because there might not be a Caesar Augustus down the pipe that's going to save you, right? I mean, I don't even think Trump's going to come down the pipe and save you. But it's just, you have to believe in your heart that who you are and who your people are, that there's something still there, that there's a spirit left. And it might take generations. But maybe one day your forebears, maybe they'll get it in ways that people around you don't. So, yeah. And if you have God on your side, that's pretty much it. I mean,
again, it's about the faith to endure the
yeah.
fatigue of the day.
Well, because our ancestors endured quite a lot when you really think about it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, like it's nothing compared to what they endured. So there you go. Mammoths don't exist anymore. Why shouldn't it be different for humans? I don't know, Louis Cachet. You've been reading some Nick Bostrom. Like, what's going on, big guy? No, I understand. No, that is true. But at that point, all bets are off. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right?
At that point, I just assumed that if it gets to that point,
the rapture will probably happen. Who knows?
And well, not that. Just that if it gets to a point where it's, we're talking at that kind of rate of like let it all burn, let it all go, let it all be gone. You and I are so far gone from that.
Yeah,
you and I won't have to worry
really matter.
about it. Yeah, that's a conceptual thing that's pretty far off.
Well, I think the problem with that thinking is that it's a form of nihilism in some ways, because it's like, oh, well, the sun's gonna explode. People talk about this I remember when they were talking about the fucking Just Stop Oil people. Like, oh, well, in the future, every canvas is going to disintegrate, every sculpture is going to collapse, and does it really matter? And why do we place value in the work of art? It's like, well, what else are you going to place value in, right? You're going to place value in yeast life and in just propagating things. You don't realize that these works of art have animated peoples the world over, that have carried civilizations through the darkest of periods. Orthodox icons that have had to endure multiple invasions and burnings from Tartars and warring peoples.
And communists.
Yeah, remember the end of Andrei Rublev? What did his mentor say? Yeah, I've had icons burn, but then you paint them again, right?
He even says it, he says it to the boy at the end. He finds his faith again. He says, I will paint, you will make the bells. And I mean, it's sort of the same way that we see in all sort of Western stories as well. More importantly, in the West, is that there is that we will rebuild.
Right. No, Prude, why is an icon important?
Outside of its incarnational theology, I mean, Christ, God, reveals himself as an incarnate human being that can be depicted. Secondly, it pays homage to the person of the prototype. Third, as Saint Basil the Great said, they are books for the unlearned. And finally, just to give another answer, I suppose this would be that they are to show what we can be, which is in communion with God. You never see a proper one. You'll never see someone depicted at their lowest moment. They're depicted at their holiest. that halo is not because of them. That is God's glory upon them that they have achieved through virtue, martyrdom, or whatever cause that they have done that is salvific. And so for that, I mean, they represent the truth of what came onto this world, which is that, I mean, for me today, and if you're on the new calendar, it is today, and I think it is also for the Catholics. It's the Feast of the Transfiguration.
Mm-hmm.
That is the fullest proof of God on earth in a way that no man can behold it. And even as the music says, the disciples beheld it as much as they could bear it, because they couldn't endure it.
Yeah, well, that's saying like there's a theology around or icons having the mark of divinity. There's the uncreated light that's been painted around certain figures, right? But the point being is that, or there's been icons that have survived wars, famines, oppression, invasions by Mongols,
I mean, there are
Muslims,
symbols. There are
communism.
There are symbols that have done that too. I mean, your nation's flag, a song that has endured, a ship that has survived a conflict. These are things that become part of a national story, a theological story, a part of a people. And I mean, these things can endure. I will urge caution. Do not let these institutions of symbols or beliefs or institutions, period, be the sole thing that you defend. You can't be like Peter Hitchens. You cannot say, well, as long as these things exist, then we'll carry on. No, because institutions can be hollowed out from the inside and be made a mockery of.
Like the Tory party itself.
Or like or even the Church of England.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, it's important to consider that it is not just an institution. It is not just an image. It is not just a saying. Because the saying or an image or a belief or an institution is based in its people. And the moment that you decide to focus one over the other, you have functionally lost. Because once you trade the people for an institution or trade the people out for a new one, but you say the institution's still around, it doesn't matter what flag is on it, it doesn't matter what name is on it, it's functionally dead.
No, yeah, but that's what I mean. It's almost miraculous that some of these things have managed to survive. Even the Catholic Church that has for centuries finagled around Europe and tried to secure political power and so forth. But up until very recently, relatively, the actual core doctrine, the actual core theology changed very little when the Catholic Church was engaged in all of these different power struggles and historical developments and so forth. It wasn't really until, well, I don't want to get into a debate about Vatican II, but that's another can of worms. But yeah, it's the same thing. The fact that, just in your example with the icons, right? The fact that some of them have endured for so long, endured multiple shifts in consensus reality, and have still managed to survive. Not a lot of things survive communism, for example. So you have to really think about that. So yeah, you have to always think about these things. It's hard because, we were saying in the beginning of the show, things come at you in such a rapid manner that you really don't have enough of a reprieve from them to just examine things and actually think about things deeply. It hasn't changed. The gates of hell will not prevail. Yes. I mean, that's what you have to believe in your heart,
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. Vatican I changed a lot. Yeah, that is true. That's true.
Yeah. But I'm going to try to avoid dealing with those kind of discussions for tonight.
Yeah, that's complicated.
Yeah, well, also, I try not to engage in that kind of stuff just because I'm a little focused on my own salvation. But no, I mean, I get it. If people want to debate that stuff, that's on them. I try not to entertain it. I've made my reasons for why I am the way that I am, and I imagine you are the same way. But I suppose I noticed that you put out your shunning review. Is that what it's called?
Oh yeah, the shunning.
The shunning. I have not listened to that yet.
It was all right. I finally put it. Now I got to do Hell's Reich, and a bunch of other ones. And I think tomorrow I'm doing the Micah Paul movie stream with.
Oh yeah, Drive Time Movie Nights with Micah Paul and the Capitalissimo. That'll be.
I think it's only available on Twitter. I don't know if we saves it somewhere.
They get saved on Odyssey and Rumble.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll join have fun with that mini game. I hope that you win, so Cap continues to suffer punishment. My Cruelty Squad review comes out in a couple of weeks. I need to re-record some footage. I am going to make it a video, so I hope Charlie Mackey, if you're listening, it will be a video. I hope that you're happy. And then I'm also playing Cultist Simulator, and I think that review will be shorter just because it's more of a card-based game, and I like card games and meta kind of stuff like that. So yeah, I'm quite happy with how that's been going. Alongside that, I did get a lot of writing done over the course of the few days I was off Twitter for the last 4 or 5 days, and I'll have some stuff come out this week, including finally that piece on language that I've been trying to finish and get over the hump. And then I'm gonna put out a movie review. I'm gonna have my review and my thoughts on the movie Her out. I was recently inspired by that awful. Do you see that awful little ad? That thing called Friend.
Yeah, I think default she experimented a little bit with it.
She got one?
I think she got one, yeah.
Wow.
Just to test it, to see like what it's like. I gotta ask her about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty abysmal, man. That was like you could just like hear the uncanny music, like, you know, like those compilations.
Yeah.
Like it was dark. I think it's why they made it though. Like it seems like it's just an art project, but you never know. Like
even if it's an art project, there will be someone who says, "What if we made that real?"
Yeah.
You know, even if it's an art project, then in the same way, like you clearly took inspiration from the movie Her.
And I mean, what is it like? It gives you text messages. Like, what does it do?
It talks to you.
Oh my god!
It acts like a friend, and I don't know if it is an art installation or not. If it's an art installation, then like it has that. It takes that Omega Mart art gallery thing, and then it takes it up to 11 because of the technological uncanniness to it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, a few years ago, you can find this article. I think it's in like the San Francisco Chronicle. It's an interactive article about the guy who brought his girlfriend back from the dead with GPT-2.
Yeah.
So, like, this is older stuff. But I mean, like, I wonder if that guy still kept her around or not. I'd love to interview that guy. I'd love to know if he still talks to his dead girlfriend with that thing, or if he's updated the model or whatever. But, you know, I think that is the future for a lot of people. And I was telling Wade Stotts this because he tweeted it out a couple of like last week. We don't really talk about the movie Children of Men all that much. I think the movie clearly corrupts the message for the obvious like racial implications of it all.
Yeah.
But like the book itself is really good, and the book should be discussed more. But like in the book, they do emphasize that because you know the Omegas are the last ones who were ever born, the society without a future. So they christen the puppies and the kittens, and there's this like desire to act like that's the way to go. So in a society where no one thinks about a future because they voluntarily, not because of some disease, they have well, I mean, you could argue mind virus or whatever, but like because of some disease, you know, for us, it's kind of this like weird voluntarily social pressure filter thing. That is a lot of it, of course, top down. That all of a sudden, you know, we'll just have a friend. We'll have our dogs. We'll have our cats. And it brings back all the J.D. Vance discourse about childless, you know, moms and cat ladies and stuff like that.
Yeah, but like that's what I said before about millennials. Like they're going to live in communes. Remember that?
Oh yeah,
yeah. That idea, like they're going to sort of like the poem "The Hollowed Men," you know, grope together for warmth on the edge of the Tumid River. Like it's a powerful image. I think that it was like that one Anais Nin book that I wanted to do a painting on about like a group of people that live all of their emotions through each other, and like there's an impossibility to get to the other side. No, I think that a lot of people are going to do that. They're going to live in like semi-communal, like you know, polycule type things.
Well, I think about all of those like homes they do for what's the word I'm looking for? They do that
group
homes? They do all of those like group homes for like people who are deaf or people who have special needs.
Oh, nursing homes?
Well, yeah, but I mean like they're group homes. It's not like just the elderly, because I mean a deaf person has a lot of agency.
Yeah.
You know, and so I just think that'll be a lot of people as they get older. It will be a lot of older people who are looking for answers, and that'll be it, right?
Yeah. Long-term care facilities for millennials. Oh, that's so bad. That's brutal.
No, but it'll happen as they get older. I think it'll happen.
People will start living together again. Yeah, it's true. It'll happen.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
I don't know. I just think that there's potential for that,
But anime girls would be horrifying IRL. No, I don't know.
Did you say e-girls would be horrifying?
Anime girls.
Oh.
If they could make anime girls real.
That sounds bad.
No, it's great.
I don't know if you can make them real. Like, are they going to have human like features and proportions, or is it going to be like the actual anime character?
Well, I'm sure there would be like.
Actually, you know what? I'm not entertaining this. I'm not even gonna. Because if I open my mouth, no. Nope.
I'm sure they would have like they could blend into society. You know what I mean? Like they probably would. They look human. I don't know. They'd be the perfect woman. What? Don't give me the silent treatment.
I don't. I'm not. It's not. I'm not giving you the silent treatment.
Do you remember that viral tweet by Starbard? It was I forget. It was when the abortion debate came up. He's like, an anime girl would never even think about having an abortion.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
That was great. That was a great Starbard tweet. Imagine Asuka but real. Imagine
sadly, you live in the real world where there are liberals.
Yeah, I know. It's too bad.
Yeah. You ready to go to the Super Chats, Gio?
Sure.
Alrighty. Well, we promised to be a little more lighthearted and jovial. Just this has been a hell of a news week, to say the least.
Yeah.
Let's not kid ourselves there. But your ongoing financial support is greatly appreciated. I will have that lovely little rant on the fat Wojak thing, the meme coins and psychosecurity out later this week. That will be for patrons exclusively. And hopefully that article on language corruption comes out by Friday. I was recently on Jason's Miron Chunk of the 2-Bit podcast. You can go see that on my community tab. And, they're not sponsoring us, but I'm going to plug them anyway. If you are not subscribed to Two Keys Mag on YouTube, a famous of the Sidebar podcast, so they cover a lot of the literature that's being written by this scene of ours, go follow them because they would like to get to the sub count where they can do live streams. And I kind of want to see that happen in real time. So if you can go subscribe to Two Keys Mag, greatly appreciate it. Go check out my community tab. I shared a video of theirs. Go subscribe to them. They're very entertaining.
Yeah, I was going to listen to the one in Parapolitics. I was excited for that one. I'm going to listen to it.
Yeah, it was good.
And I've yet to finish the Honor Levy review of my first book.
I'm glad they reviewed it. It's not a book for me.
Oh boy, I have to read it.
Someone paid you to read it?
No, I have to read it because with default.
No.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're interviewing her.
Yeah, soon. Yeah, hopefully soon. We'll see. She's busy though. She Honor Levy's a hot commodity now.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, she is a hot commodity. Never mind. Don't worry. She's isn't she married now? She has a boyfriend. I don't know.
Does she?
I think so. I think she's married. I don't know. It's complicated. It's all complicated with New York City girls.
Yeah,
complicated.
I just block women. It makes my life easier.
You think Dasha will ever get married? Probably not.
No.
You'd have to be a pretty strong Giga Chad to to make Dasha settle down. That never, it's impossible. You never know.
I couldn't tell you what it would take. I don't want to think about it.
All right.
It
would take some never mind.
I don't want to know what you were going to say, so I'm going to skip that. All right, I'm going to go towards the super chats now. We'll start with the entropy ones. Sam153 says the UK news is depressing, a tear shed for the heart of oak.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Seneca says, I have a hot take here. Why not intentionally join these wizened institutions like Knights of Columbus, the Elks Lodge, etc., and get your friends to join? Are they old men's drinking clubs? They sure can be, but there's value to reviving old institutions while building new ones. That has been discussed a lot, and I know that there are a few people who do that.
I wrote an article years ago on it.
Yeah, and I know the Capitalissimo is a fucking Freemason, but he's
a Freemason.
He is a Freemason.
Oh fuck! I can't go on the show then.
He's on a Masonic lodge. Yeah, I know. I wish I knew that when I was doing shit with him. But
no,
but
they say the American one's not that bad. The American.
Oh, for him, he's like, yeah, it's basically a drinking club.
Yeah, it's a social club.
Okay, I'm on to you, buddy.
They say the European Freemasons. That's the real shit. Yeah.
Well, I'm never going to join said organization, so I don't have to worry about that. But yeah, so Jay Ford says, looking forward to episode 100, which will certainly be a huge milestone where the digital archipelago will outshine itself and transform into a new medium of art. Well,
oh man, that's a high expectation.
That's a high expectation. We got like a whole episode to get ready for our beautiful transformation. We'll see what happens.
Exactly, EL. That's exactly what I was going to say. Tying the knot with Dasha may require you to actually tie some knots, if you know what I mean. Oh god, that's terrible. Oh, wow.
That's actually really funny. Doesn't have my
Dasha chained to the basement radiator groiper. I actually saw that one day. I'm not joking. I saw someone reply, and the name was Dasha tied to my basement radiator groiper. I think that account got nuked though. Anyways, sorry.
I have no words. But Seneca says, this was an earlier super chat. I'm not so sure if I'll have time for Missouri lore this week because I'm at a Knights of Columbus meeting. I wanted to leave something just in case. Well, thank you, Seneca. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Seneca.
Charlie Mackey says, good evening, gentlemen. I will look forward to catching the stream as a VOD. How go to the reviews? Hope you were both doing well. Well, as I mentioned, Charlie, your review is coming out later this month. I'm going to make it a video. I have to record some footage, but I will have that as a video. I will probably just put it up on Substack until I get some of the proper channel set up for the second channel. That might just be my secret game review channel that I do sometimes. And then your Cultist Simulator one will probably be just a shorter text review, just because it's a card game. It's not a first-person shooter with its own wacky absurdism to it, but they are going to be out very soon. So that's the Entropy ones. So now I can go to the YouTube ones. Let's start here. Penultimate says, how are we also black pill when we are getting so much ground with the average normie when it comes to immigration? These protests prove it.
Yeah, true.
That's true, and I think that's the silver lining to it, Penultimo. And also, like, I'm going to wade into a bit of a discursive point here that I know people are not going to like. So, the immigration issue was brought up on Oren's stream. He had David Azarad on, and basically, Oren was all but saying the post-World War II narratives about immigration are, that they do want white minority countries because they think white people are dangerous. And it's just like, okay. And he's like, well, the left says this. And then all the autists in his replies are spurting out because he's not, naming certain groups or whatever. But I'm like, that's a pretty huge deal to push the Overton window as far as you can on that particular subject without getting a certain man who wishes to be a citizen of Israel calling him and getting him fired. So, I mean, that is a good silver lining.
I will die for his.
I'm so glad you didn't finish that for someone to clip.
Yeah, no.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Penultimo, thank you for that. Because we've been so dark and depressing and moody that if anyone makes it this far into the VOD, lest we be completely cynical and say nothing ever happens. Things do happen because the public opinion on immigration has never been higher against it and more for mass deportations now than it ever has been. And that the people are genuinely fed up in almost every Western country on God's green earth. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Penultimo, and I appreciate you for doing that. I thank you. PK says 200 watching and only 51 likes. These are rookie numbers. Well, thank you. I don't really shield the whole algorithm game about watching and liking and thumbs upping and commenting, but TK has done it for you, so be sure to like it.
We have more people watching on Twitter though.
Oh well, because I deactivated, I have to reset up my Twitter account on StreamYard, so I didn't stream it on Twitter today.
Oh shit.
That's my fault. Blood Base says you got to drive the train or get run over by it. Yeah, you're either in power or you're not. It's that simple. Big Ben sends $13.50 for my favorite inn, Geo. Well, there you go.
Whoa!
You've been called out. You've been functionally.
Is that an Italian joke?
I couldn't tell you there.
Probably.
Potentially, yeah. Oh, there have been 2 more on entropy. We'll get to that one. This one's definitely for you, Geo, because I'm not a Catholic and I kind of disagree with the preference here. So he says, Geo, Peter here. How do I respond to a friend/house guest, Gabe's ad infinitum claim that Catholicism is the one and only true religion? Thoughts?
What do you mean? I obviously believe it's the one true religion. I mean, I guess, well, I mean, how do I respond? It's putting me on the spot because I'm generally tolerant of other people's religions. I know I shouldn't say that, but I mean, I guess, I don't know, like, you don't want to appeal to universalism because that's kind of cucked, but like, I of course it's like beyond cucked, but I mean, like, oh man, I don't know. It's hard to say. What would you do, Prude?
Well, I would disagree with his house guest's premise because I'm not a Roman Catholic.
Right.
I guess if you wanted to argue against it, and I don't mean. Okay,
See,
I
will.
I will say things that I will have to. Anyways, okay, if you wanted to be the quote literal devil's advocate, I suppose in this instance, if you wanted to argue against it not being the one true religion, you could easily argue it from the frame of perennialism.
Oh yeah, true.
You could argue it that way. I don't think it's a strong argument, and I don't think it holds up particularly well. But I mean, you can do it that way. And then plus you could just point to, if it was the one true thing, then, why have so many like left it or have arguments against it, blah, 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 blah. It just, it's hard.
Depends what you are, Peter.
Yeah, it depends on what you believe in, Peter. Yeah. And you should probably have a good argument dialogue with that character, your house guest, in a way that doesn't make things awkward and or uncomfortable.
Well, I don't know. Like,
but also be confrontational about it.
Yeah, like I'm generally deferential towards orthodoxy. So like it's like it'd be hard for me to argue with an Orthodox person, put it that way. I mean, even like a Protestant, like I don't exactly hate Protestants, I think like their theology can be kind of kooky or whatever, but like it's not like I'd make a big deal about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Same with pagans. Like I've only ever blocked pagans if they like did like the performative anti-Christian posting.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I have pagan mutuals and all that. Like I'm not.
So do I.
Yeah, I'm not gonna make a big deal about it. I think like some of that pagan history is quite interesting, actually.
I mean, I do. I follow Survive the Drive, and I mean,
yeah.
Even though I disagree with him on a religious metaphysical sense, I still can respect him as a person who has good virtue and a good sense of who he is as a person.
No, but I think like theologically, but I mean, what's not to say there's like some validity there, it's their ancient traditions.
That would be the perennial argument right there.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. Like, I mean, they are ancient traditions that were like unique to a lot of different peoples. It's not that you should immediately, like, I mean, my church believed in virtuous pagans, and I don't know. I just don't have the gumption to like really argue because I feel like I don't know. Maybe I just don't want to step on people's toes. When it comes to theology, when it comes to politics are different, but like. I don't know. Maybe we should have a pagan on. That'd be interesting.
It would be. I'm not sure how well that would go. I say that not be. I mean, it would just depend on who you want to have on.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had Dave Martell on, haven't we?
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't talk about religion really at all, but I mean, still, he's not a Christian by any means. Still.
Right.
Also, please pray for his wife, and the GoFundMe that's out there for him is doing well. But the medical stuff that his wife has gone through,
Oh, I didn't know it was his wife. What happened to his wife?
I'd recommend just reading the post. It's a long story.
Because I retweeted it and everything, but
yeah, I mean, again, support
gotta
the
go and
people you care
donate.
about in that respect.
Yeah, I gotta go and read it.
Yeah. Vaughn here says before there was before Michael Jones was the internet, he was just known as Michael Jones.
That's funny.
Well, I mean, he's introduced himself as Michael Jones when he was still on like the C-SPAN stuff in the 90s. But let me get to these.
Yeah, but it's like a joke about
yeah, I know the E. Yeah, I got it. It was funny. Owen Zaleski says, "Evening, gents. Glad to hear that you are all well. Working on a comic with my brother. It's hard, but I am learning a lot. A lot of people are talking about nothing happening, but Christ has already happened, and there's nothing else that can." Well, there's your firm Christian reminder. Pac-Man Respector says, relationship with powerlifter Nord Girl is progressing very well. To my surprise, she's pretty reactionary. How long should I wait before I propose? He does the /S for the sarcasm thing. Very Reddit. Waiting to see if the honeymoon period wears off, but maybe I've made it, fellas. Well, Pac-Man Respector, I'm rooting for you, man. If you can find someone that you're willing to make it work with, then best of luck to you. But yeah, wait till the honeymoon phase wears off. But also, from what a lot of my married friends will tell me, if you know, you know. So don't squander the moment either. And if
does she do the thing where she crushes the watermelon with her thighs?
You horny.
I'm kidding.
I wish I had a spray bottle. I need to have a soundboard so I can do the spray bottle thing for no horny posting.
Oh man.
Penultimo says, have y'all heard of like the sovereign individual, the old head libertarian stuff, but it has aged very well with its predictions. How much for a review? I've never actually heard of this, so I mean,
I've heard of it.
Oh, can you link it to me? Like, I don't mind reviewing it. It'd be a fun thing to look back on and just go over. I would do that review. I might make that a Substack thing and put that behind the paywall for patrons and Substack subscribers, but that'd be fun.
I heard of it a long time ago, but they say that guy was a nut bar.
Well, a lot of guys are nut bars that have made some real interesting predictions.
It was by William Rees Mogg and James Dale Davidson. I think like a lot of Birchers also were into it, but it came out in 97 and 99. It was, I remember, I know it influenced Peter Thiel, but a lot of people have looked back on the book and said like a lot of the predictions actually were kind of spot on. But I mean, at the time, I remember even during the early 2000s, people thought the guy was a nut job, but like, yeah, it is like, that's like an old head classic though. I got to say, I've never,
I feel bad because I've never read it then.
I haven't heard of it in years. So maybe we should, it's like kind of me like trying to resurrect transnational progressivism and the work of John Fonte. Yeah. Maybe we should try to resurrect the sovereign individual.
Well then, yeah, we should give it a shot. I'd be down. But yeah, no, thank you. I feel so, I've just exposed my my retardation for not knowing that. But no, that's good to know. What are you putting out this week, Gio?
I'll try to maybe put out a Content Minded, but I'm doing that thing with Michael Paul and Cap tomorrow, and I want to do a core report, but I guess we covered a lot of the ground that I was gonna post in the core report. Apart from this like minor disagreement I had with James Kirkpatrick over Russia, but about I don't know. I'll see. I'll probably come out with a Content Minded. And New Gloff said, "Did you ever watch Hennessy Youngman in Art School?" I actually remember those Art Thoughts videos. Yeah, they're like ancient. That's like ancient stuff. The Art Thoughts thing. Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. Here's one. Last one from Owen Zaleski. I mean, I appreciate you all sending me money. I greatly appreciate it, but also he says, hello again, gents. How much for both of you guys to review a piece of media? I assume you'd split it 50-50. By the way, you should all watch Wildcat. It's on Amazon. It's about Flannery O'Connor. Well, I definitely would be down to watch that.
I've heard of that.
As for splitting it, I guess, I mean, if it's a joint thing, I guess 50-50. Just he gets 50, I get 50. and I guess we make it a digital archipelago episode.
Yeah.
That's what we would do, Owen. So just 50 my way, 50 his way, and then we just make it a DA episend.
There you go.
That's what we would do. Speaking of media, I am doing us a friend slash fan of the show a favor. I'm going to send him a bit of some dollary dues, and our friend Cinny is down to do a little animated DA intro with those frog characters of us that he's sketched. So I've sent him. I'm going to send him $100 this next week, and we're going to go make that happen.
Oh!
So we're gonna have a little animated intro, guys. The show will have some production quality.
Remember we tried doing intros?
I still have it.
Yeah.
I know your girlfriend doesn't like it.
Oh.
So yeah, I mean, we still have it.
No, it wasn't my girlfriend. It was I think it was Gifts and Given that said she didn't like it.
Oh, okay. Well, no shirt off my back then.
Oh, you're mean.
No, it's just I like it. I made it. I'm gonna defend what I made. I don't think I have her blocked. I just don't follow her.
You should have we should have a T-shirt that says "I block e-girls." We'd make large on that one.
Don't get. I'm gonna go work on my Teespring store this weekend. I block you. That sounds great. Thank you for the inspiration.
People
Gio.
would actually buy that. No, I'm serious. If you make money on it, you'll give me a cut, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, you should do it. Like you could make a lot of money on that. People would like. I'd imagine like there's like enough like terminally online people that would buy that shirt. I block e-girls, and it'd have like the Chud Jack on it. And it'd be like no girls allowed. It'd be like in a little fort.
No, I think it would just. I think just like a plain, like black or gray T-shirt, white or light text that just says "I block e-girls."
No, it's got to be the red font and the exact font.
It doesn't need the Chud Jack.
No, it doesn't. But it would be the exact font as the Eric Harris shirt, Natural Selection. It'd be like big bold letters. I block e-girls. Like it's.
Not a half bad idea, not gonna lie.
Man.
That does sound pretty good.
Yeah, that's e-girl detected block loading. But Owens, listen, that doesn't rhyme off the tongue as much as I block e-girls.
Yeah.
You can't put that one. I grape e-girls. That's not.
No.
Not gonna happen.
No. I can't do that in good conscience.
Oh man.
I like my life.
Then one day there would be like a Mass Fun poster that wears that shirt.
Yeah, let's not. I don't need that happening to me.
We gotta get Negative XP back, and he's gonna wear the shirt.
God, could you imagine Negative XP doing a song about the Troon Nashville shooter?
Oh my god!
That'd be unspeakable kino.
It's too bad that libtards chased Negative XP off the internet, but like that was
in Cellcore.
I decapitated her. Oh my god! There was a shirt I saw a shirt like that, and it had like a Guro anime on. It was like an e-girl. She was wearing a shirt like that, but it was like Guro. I saw that once. It's terrible. I buy a Never Goon shirt in the meme.
Okay, so those are funny to see with the AI images, but like, could you imagine? This is really cringe marketing idea, but like, the Supreme logo and everything. Instead of Supreme, it just says Never Goon.
Yeah. Oh my god, in the same font. That'd be crazy. Yeah, that's a good idea. That T-shirt.
Yeah. All right. What do you got going on, Gio, besides that episode?
Oh, I don't know, man. I mean, I have to do a bunch of reviews, and I have to get back to different stuff, so I have to do a lot more painting.
One of my favorite paintings of yours is the death of Christopher Hitchens.
That's
probably one of my favorite.
That was Matthew.
Oh, it was Matthews?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that sucks that I just said that out loud and made myself an ass of myself. The other one,
yeah, that was the digital one. He worked like a lot. Yeah,
okay.
He has like multiple versions of it. It was like the Angels.
I've seen like 3 or 4 versions of it. I thought one of those was yours. Your Ruth Bader Ginsburg one I quite like, and the Internet Atheist one that you always post. That one is just it's perfect. It's like timeless because that archetype's never gone away. It's never gone away.
Oh my god, I saw one the other day. It was hilarious. I had to use it. No, I have a bunch more conceptual paintings. I mean, I've been trying to get back into landscape stuff, but that's always interesting. I haven't done any prints this year, but yeah, I have like a whole series I have to do, or we'll see what happens. T-shirt idea: WEF Global Surf. Oh, that could work. Maybe. Yeah, I used to do painting streams. Maybe I should go back to that. I don't know.
You should.
Yeah. I used to do them. Anyways, it's getting late. I'm tired. I just drove 4 hours today. So
yeah. Well, then let's get ourselves out of here. We will be live next week on Gio's channel. It might be on a Monday because next Tuesday is the 13th, and I've got work late over to deal with some government meetings. But other than that, back to regular schedule. I will hopefully have some lovely patron content out later this week, and we'll see you all next time.
God bless. Goodbye. Too sweet.
See you, gents.